Marshall Peak, Chapter 5727, Battles Break Out. Not counting the Black Ink giant spirit gods, royal lords were at the peak of what was possible for the Black Ink clan to field and were by no means easy targets. It was already proof of how strong Fu Guang was that he could go up against two of them without being at a disadvantage. It even looked as if he could overpower them given enough time. On the suppressing Black Ink fortress, the suppressing Black Ink army was doing its best to fend off the enemy. Scores of formidable auras filled the sky as beams of destructive light shot out towards the swarming Black Ink clan. It seemed as if the humans had the situation under control, but more and more enemies kept pouring out of the primordial heavens source grand restriction, including many innate territory lords. If things continued on this way, the pressure would only grow more intense. 58th Order Masters quietly stood atop the suppressing Black Ink fortress, not joining the fight. They were the chosen 8th Order Masters who would enter the Universe Furnace in search of opportunities. They should have rushed straight into the Universe Furnace when it opened, but the Black Ink clan's attack put a stop to their plan. This was unsurprising, as the Black Ink clan would not have allowed the humans to gain more benefits without a fight. The Black Ink clan had already predicted this when the illusory phantom of the Universe Furnace first appeared. The divine dragon swam through the void as his murderous intent flared wildly. He defended himself from the two royal lords who were charging at him as his dragon roars echoed thunderously. "Go now. What are you waiting for?" Fu Guang saw that the 58th Order Masters had not moved, so he could not resist scolding them. Transmissions were coming from other 8th Order Masters fighting on the battlefield too. "If you miss your chance now, it will never appear again. Hurry up and enter the Universe Furnace. You don't need to worry about us. As long as the suppressing Black Ink fortress remains standing, the suppressing Black Ink army will not fall." Still, the 58th Order Masters atop the wall did not move. The entrance to the Universe Furnace was wide open, and it would only take them a moment to dive inside to seize the opportunity that would allow them to reach the peak of Marshall Dao. It was not as if they did not long for that, however, there was something else they cared about as well. Yang Xiao laughed and said, "I only want this opportunity so that I can kill more enemies. Now that the enemy is right in front of me, why must I go round the sun to reach the moon? I shall partake in my share of the kills first." He rushed into the battle as soon as he finished speaking, and Yang Shui followed immediately after without saying a word. The two of them seemed to move in unison as they lunged at a territory lord who was trying to sneak up on a human master. The 50 figures flew out from the walls, but none of them headed for the Universe Furnace, instead rushing straight onto the battlefield to join the battle. Fu Guang saw this from afar and sighed, but he did not try to talk them out of it. The suppressing Black Ink army was small, only numbering 6,000 in total. Though the army had more than 400 8th Order Masters and the suppressing Black Ink fortress, which was a mobile palace artifact on par with the Great Passes of old, it took the genuine unity displayed by all of them to hold back the torrent of Black Ink clansmen that flooded out from the gap in the primordial heavens source grand restriction. As the 58th Order Masters fearlessly joined the fight, the suppressing Black Ink army soon gained the upper hand. The Black Ink clan had not expected the human masters to not be tempted by the great opportunity they had in front of them, so they were caught off guard and took a heavy blow. Unfortunately for the Black Ink clan, they could not stop midway through the battle. Previously, they attacked the suppressing Black Ink army and were willing to sacrifice so many soldiers, including multiple royal lords, just to keep Fu Guang and Wu Kuang fully occupied. That way, they could probe the grand restriction for weaknesses to let innate territory lords sneak out. It was an enormous sacrifice, but also a resounding success. At least 1,000 innate territory lords had managed to sneak out undetected. However, once the situation was discovered and Wu Kuang patched the vulnerability they exploited, the Black Ink clan ceased all combat. They knew there was no point in carrying on with the unnecessary sacrifices as the humans were now on full alert. The human race master who was controlling the grand restriction now would never allow himself to be tricked in the same way again, and it was basically impossible for the Black Ink clan to mount a decisive attack that could overwhelm the human army outside the gap. If they could not break past the humans' defenses outside, they would only be wasting their forces by trying. Thus, they did not launch any attacks in the past few years, until the Universe Furnace showed up. To stop the human race masters of the suppressing Black Ink army from entering the universe furnace and obtaining opportunities for themselves, the Black Ink clan began a full-scale assault again. They thought this situation would turn in their favor, but who knew that the suppressing Black Ink army would choose to stand and fight? The human race masters were not at all blinded by the opportunity that was right at their fingertips and fully focused on the battle instead. This meant that the Black Ink clan were caught in a seemingly hopeless situation. It would be a waste of resources if they continued sending out more soldiers, but if they did not, then those who had already left the primordial heaven's source grand restriction would be wiped out, including 2 royal lord. They were caught between a rock and a hard place. While the suppressing Black Ink army and the Black Ink clan were engaged in a fierce battle outside the primordial heaven's source grand restriction, the Black Ink clan was in complete control of the barren territory. There was also a phantom of the universe furnace in the barren territory, and it was impossible for the human race army to approach it. No human had entered the barren territory over the past few millennia except for young Kai, who had passed by a few times. The Black Ink clan had arranged for countless clansmen to wait by the universe furnace. Once it opened, the Black Ink clan army hesitantly checked it out before a few of their territory lords led the charge into the universe furnace. Soon, they disappeared inside the universe furnace world. Meanwhile, within the space on the Black Ink battlefield, Missouri Nae, who was restrained here, had been on edge for nearly 2 years, but after seeing no sign of young Kai, he was certain that the latter had somehow left this place. Although he did not know how that was possible, or what the swirl that devoured young Kai was, it was still a good thing for him. At least, he did not have to worry about young Kai appearing all of a sudden to kill him. There was no threat to his life now, but the injuries he previously sustained were quite serious and he could not tend to them while he was being held down here. When the illusory phantom of the universe furnace solidified and the opening appeared, Mo-Na felt the ground shaking and the void fluctuating. When he came back to his senses, he was already inside a vast, boundless space. Mo-Na instantly raised his guard as his divine sense flooded out in all directions. Though he did not detect any signs of danger, he did not relax as he had no idea what would happen to him after suddenly appearing in a strange new place. A moment later, it struck him that he could be inside the universe furnace right now. After comparing his experience to the way young Kai had disappeared earlier, he came up with a possibility. Young Kai entered the universe furnace world approximately 2 years ago, so that was why he never showed up. All of a sudden, Mo-Na felt a heightened sense of danger. If he ran into young Kai here in his present, injured state, there was no guarantee as to who would survive the clash. Mo-Na forcefully composed himself, but did not move away from his spot immediately. He had entered the universe furnace from that strange, folded space, so if the territory lords outside had even the semblance of sense, they would have noticed something had happened. Regardless of whether they made the decision themselves or consulted with the royal lord instead, the territory lords would most likely be entering soon. Mo-Na was going to stay in this spot and wait for them. He would only feel safe when he regrouped with others. However, to his disappointment, despite waiting for quite some time, he did not see any signs of the territory lords. When the phantom of the universe furnace solidified and the opening appeared, Mo-Na's aura disappeared too. Outside the universe furnace, the territory lords who had set up the heaven-sealing earth-locking grand array were at a loss. They had arranged the grand array here to stop young Kai from fleeing, but young Kai was long gone and Mo-Na had now disappeared as well, so what were they supposed to do? Furthermore, when the projection of the universe furnace solidified, a mysterious power arose from the furnace opening. It seemed to have turned into a passage that led into another world. The territory lords had a quick discussion before sending a report back to No Return Pass to seek guidance from Royal Lord Mo-Yu. Meanwhile, Mo-Yu received reports from the barren territory which stated that after the solidification of the universe furnace's illusory phantom, the universe furnace itself did not show up. Instead, a strange passage appeared at the furnace opening. It seemed to be the entrance to the universe furnace, and the Black Ink clan army stationed at the barren territory had started entering it to explore. It dawned on Mo-Yu at that moment that the Black Ink clan's understanding of the universe furnace had been wrong. The dozen or so illusory phantoms had always been portals to the universe furnace. Realizing this, He immediately ordered the territory lords to enter the universe furnace to aid Mo Na Yi. After getting the order, the territory lords outside the opening did not hesitate. They quickly made some preparations before rushing into the furnace. However, when the territory lords entered the universe furnace, they realized that they had all been sent to different places. Even though they had entered from the same opening, they were now standing alone in a vast void. This was the reason why Mo Na Yi did not see any of the territory lords coming to his aid despite waiting around for a long time. He had no choice but to leave and find a secure location. What was most important for him right now was to find a way to tend to his injuries. Battles broke out at the same time across all the different great territory battlefields. The Black Ink clan did not know much about the universe furnace, so for the past years, they basically moved to mirror the actions of the humans. When the human race gathered their armies outside the universe furnace, the Black Ink clan followed suit. When the humans moved their masters around, the Black Ink clan did likewise. Essentially, they decided the best counter was to mimic the humans' actions. This was an astute move on the Black Ink clan's part, and it was Mo Na Yi who came up with it. He thought that since they did not know much, they should simply respond as their enemy did. On the battlefields across the void, the human race army and the Black Ink clan army gathered around the entrances to the universe furnace as they engaged in a fierce battle. With every breath, countless lives were lost. Mi Jinglun was at the Supreme Headquarters overseeing everything when a series of reports came in one after the other. Soon, a deep frown was etched on his forehead. There had been an unexpected turn of events on the great territory battlefields. The human army had managed to break through the Black Ink clan's blockade in 3 of the great territory battlefields and killed countless enemies in an extremely short amount of time. There was no one around to stop the human race masters from their charge. The reason behind this was that the Black Ink clan did not assign any of their territory lords to defend these 3 great territory battlefields. Not a single territory lord showed up, and even the feudal lords were few and far between. On these 3 great territory battlefields, while the Black Ink clan army was large in numbers, they were obviously only there to draw the humans' attention. Most of the soldiers were just expendable cannon fodder. Mi Jinglun immediately realized what was happening. The Black Ink clan had already decided to give up on these 3 great territory battlefields long ago, but they moved their troops in secret to trick the humans into thinking that there were still territory lords positioned there. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5728, The Most Worrying Situation. Even Mi Jinglun could not help but feel respect for his opponent's bold choice to give up on 3 great territory battlefields. This has to be that pseudo-royal lord Mo Na Yi's doing. No one else in the Black Ink clan could make such a prompt and resolute decision except for him. The human race and the Black Ink clan had been fighting on these 3 great territory battlefields for several millennia now, sacrificing countless lives. Making a snap decision to give up on 3 of them would not only negate all the sacrifices made, but it could also have a great impact on the future. Mi Jinglun was willing to admit that he would not be able to make this decision on behalf of the human race. It was not as if he was any less bold than Mo Na Yi, but because the 2 parties were in different positions. Throughout these years, the human race had been fighting tooth and nail to ensure they did not surrender even a single step of territory to the enemy. The more great territories the Black Ink clan claimed, the worse the situation got for the humans. Therefore, no matter how dire the situation was, the human race armies could never give up on any great territory battlefield. Many years ago, Mi Jinglun started keeping an eye on Mo Na Yi after being tipped off by young Kai. Even though Mi Jinglun and Mo Na Yi never physically crossed paths throughout their millennia of war, the former had a fairly solid understanding of the latter's wits. Thus, the moment he received the reports regarding the 3 great territory battlefields, Mo Na Yi immediately popped up in his mind. One could say that the human race armies had made a clean sweep of these 3 great territory battlefields. Wherever they went, the Black Ink clan fell defenselessly, and if this situation continued, it would take less than a few months for the human race to completely claim these 3 great territory battlefields for good. The Black Ink clan would not be able to survive there. Nevertheless, Mi Jinglun was not pleased by this at all. The Black Ink clan had voluntarily given up on 3 great territory battlefields and did not assign any of their masters to stand guard in those areas. Instead, they sent a large army of expendable soldiers to keep the human race occupied. This meant that the Black Ink clan could assign even more masters to the other great territory battlefield. Why did the Black Ink clan, or rather Mo-Na-Yi, make such a decision? Even if sacrifices needed to be made for the greater good, Mo-Na-Yi must have known what would happen when he made this decision. Do they not have enough masters? Over the years, the Black Ink clan had added numerous territory lords to their ranks, and many more innate territory lords had snuck out of the primordial heavens source grand restriction just recently, so it was unlikely for them to lack masters. All of a sudden, a thought occurred to Mi Jinglun. After taking into account the various reports he had received in the past, he immediately came to a conclusion and swiftly yelled to the group of aides beside him, "Quick! Send word to all the armies to be wary of pseudo-royal lords." He had underestimated the Black Ink clan's fervor and determination. Now that the universe furnace had surfaced, the Black Ink clan would undoubtedly fight the human race for the great opportunities available. Regardless of what happened, they would surely create a few pseudo-royal lords to shift the odds in their favor. Furthermore, a hefty number of innate territory lords had snuck out of the primordial heavens source grand restriction, which meant that the Black Ink clan had more than enough innate territory lords to create pseudo-royal lords. Mi Jinglun was not completely caught off guard by this, as he knew all along that the Black Ink clan would soon begin creating more pseudo-royal lords, but he had not expected them to move so quickly. Fortunately, the human race had developed countermeasures for this exact scenario. Although the pseudo-royal lords were powerful, they could not wield all of their strength and were thus considerably weaker than true royal lords. Over the past years, the 8th Order Open Heaven Realm Masters had been practicing numerous battle formations specifically to face these pseudo-royal lords. As a worthy strategist and the supreme commander who oversaw all the military operations of the human race, Mi Jinglun had already done his best to consider all the possibilities he could possibly imagine. However, from the looks of things now, there would be far more pseudo-royal lords than he expected. Why would the Black Ink clan have insufficient masters, forcing them to abandon several battlefields? It took the sacrifice of over a dozen innate territory lords to create just one pseudo-royal lord, so if many of the former were lost to create the latter, then it made sense why the Black Ink clans had insufficient numbers. Furthermore, in recent years, the reports from various battlefields confirmed that many of the innate territory lords that were usually seen on the front lines seemed to have disappeared, while a few unfamiliar ones had shown up in their place. The innate territory lords who disappeared must have gone to the no-return pass and taken part in the plan to create pseudo-royal lords. As for the unfamiliar ones, they were most likely the innate territory lords who snuck out of the primordial heavens source grand restriction. Mi Jinglun did not think the territory lords from the primordial heavens source grand restriction were involved in the plan to create pseudo-royal lords at the moment, as they were heavily injured. It would take them at least a century or two before they could be fully restored. However, even if Mi Jinglun only took into account the original number of innate territory lords that the Black Ink clan had, it would still be a terrifying amount if all of them were involved in the plan to create pseudo-royal lord. As soon as Mi Jinglun gave the order, streaks of light flashed in from the distance as messengers brought in new reports from the great territory battlefields. Mi Jinglun swiftly scanned through them, and soon, all the color drained from his face. What he was most worried about had indeed occurred. The pseudo-royal lords that appeared were far higher in number than what he predicted. 4 pseudo-royal lords had shown up in profound nether territory alone. The battle took a sudden turn as the 4 pseudo-royal lords burst forth on the battlefield in 4 different critical locations. They managed to break past their defenses, which resulted in heavy casualties. Thankfully, the 8th Order Masters had swiftly assumed their battle formations and were able to stabilize the situation, even if barely. That being said, things were not looking good in profound nether territory, and it seemed unlikely that the human race could seize control of the entrance there. Numerous pseudo-royal lords had also appeared across the various great territory battlefields where intense fights were taking place. Even the heavily wounded innate territory lords with weak auras that snuck out of the primordial heavens source grand restriction had joined the battlefields. These innate territory lords were greatly weakened and could not stand against the 8th Order Masters, But they were still innate territory lords, and those lower than the Eighth Order could not hold their own against them. Thus, their presence was an added burden to the human race armies. There was only one thing that Mi Jinglun was thankful for. Even though the Black Ink clan had more pseudo-royal lords than expected, it was not to the point where the human race's situation became hopeless. Judging from the reports, he also surmised that the heavily injured innate territory lords from the primordial heavens source ground restriction really could not take part in the creation of pseudo-royal lords. This was the only silver lining. Otherwise, the human race would have suffered a devastating loss today. The Black Ink clan had sacrificed a great number of seasoned innate territory lords to create a group of pseudo-royal lords. Even though they were fewer in number now, when it came to raw power, theirs had greatly increased. Thus, the Black Ink clan quickly gained the upper hand throughout the various great territory battlefields as they managed to catch the humans off guard. However, the humans were not on the losing end on every single great territory battlefield. In Azure Sun territory, pure yin and yang energy melded together in the void to create the image of a giant yin-yang fish that covered a vast expanse. The dead bodies of several innate territory lords were caught within the yin-yang fish as the auras of four figures clashed, spreading massive waves of destruction all around them. One of the silhouettes was a tall and slender woman. Her long hair fluttered behind her as murderous intent radiated from her form. Even though she was up against 3 opponents, she was still able to hold on with the help of her divine ability. She was one of the few Ninth Order Open Heaven Realm Masters that the human race possessed. It was Luo Ting-he of Yin-Yang Cave Heaven, who once stood guard over the suppressing Black Ink Fortress. She and old ancestor Xiao Xiao came from the same sect, thus, the secret arts and secret techniques that they cultivated were quite similar. The yin-yang fish was one of Luo Ting his strongest divine abilities. This was not just seen in its ability to slaughter enemies, but more importantly, in its ability to restrain opponents. Back when old ancestor Xiao Xiao faced off against the Royal Lord of Great Evolution Theatre, she used the same divine ability countless times. At this moment, Luo Ting he did her best to keep her divine ability above the entrance to the universe furnace as she fought against the 3 pseudo-royal lords. It had not been long since she became a Ninth Order Open Heaven Realm Master. At most, it could only be rounded up to 2,000 years. Forget reaching the peak of her cultivation, it was barely long enough for her to consolidate her realm. However, she was still a genuine Ninth Order Master. It would be easy enough for her to deal with a single pseudo-royal lord, and she would not lose her ground against 2 either, but 3 was pushing the limit, so she had to rely on the power of her divine ability to fight back. The auras of yin and yang converged inside the yin-yang fish to form invisible millstones. The 3 pseudo-royal lords tried their hardest to break away, but they could not get out. The grinding from that mysterious aura made them incredibly irascible. No one dared to get near the 4 masters as they engaged in battle after a few innate territory lords had accidentally gotten caught up and wound up dead. However, it was not 3, but rather 5 pseudo-royal lords in total who came to Azure Sun territory. This battlefield had always been a crucial one in the battle between the humans and the Black Ink clan, so the latter would naturally send a sizable number of their pseudo-royal lords over. They had considered the possibility of a Ninth Order Master being on the battlefield, but they never thought that a Ninth Order Master would be powerful enough to pin down 3 pseudo-royal lords alone. The other 2 pseudo-royal lords were not having it easier either. Each of them was up against 5 Eighth Order Masters who formed a 5 elements formation. This enabled the human masters to fight evenly against a pseudo-royal lord as neither party was able to overpower the other. The humans were the ones who came up with the battle formations first. When the territory lords went up against Yang Kai, they were able to form 4 symbols formations, but they could rarely form the 5 elements formation. However, the same could not be said of the humans. As long as the Eighth Order Masters were familiar with each other, they could easily form a 5 elements formation. In fact, the humans' highest record was a 7 stars formation formed by 7 Eighth Order Masters. Such a battle formation would even enable the human race to face off against a true Royal Lord, though there was no guarantee as to who would win the fight. However, even the Eighth Order Open Heaven Realm Masters would have a hard time forming battle formations that required even more numbers such as 8 desolations or 9 palaces. This was because everyone possessed powerful cultivation, and the higher the cultivation, the harder it was to form a battle formation. This was the reason why Yang Kai was astounded by the way Zhongruo she managed to control her small stone race army to form the incredibly complex Second Order and even Third Order 9 Palaces formation. All 5 of the pseudo-royal lords were pinned down. Azure Sun territory had always been an essential area for the human masters, therefore, there were many of them here, and the humans had the upper hand across the entire battlefield. It would not be difficult for them to gain control over the entrance to the universe furnace here. However, the situation remained troublesome for them as Bloodcrow had reported that the entrance to the universe furnace would only remain open for 3 days. Once 3 days were up, it would disappear once more. Therefore, the humans would have to enter within 3 days if they wanted to seize the opportunities awaiting them inside the universe furnace, or otherwise, it would be too late. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5729, 3 days. Only those in at least the 7th Order could enter the universe furnace in search of an opportunity, as it was pointless to enter if one's cultivation realm was too low. Those below the 7th Order would just needlessly lose their lives if they ran into a territory lord or even a feudal lord. Therefore, the humans curated a list of numerous 7th Order and 8th Order masters who were given the right to enter the universe furnace when it opened this time. That being said, not everyone who had the right to go in could do so, as the humans could not enter the universe furnace if the Black Ink clan controlled the entrance. Even if the human race had the upper hand on some of the battlefields, these 7th Order and 8th Order masters could not enter at will. Quite often, these chosen few were the core pillars in the battle of the armies they served in, so if they all just left, the advantage they had would be lost almost immediately as the tides turned against the humans. As a result, none of the humans on the various Great Territory battlefields had entered the universe furnace yet. They were doing their best to cull the enemy, as they would only be able to leave in peace once the threat posed by the enemy was under firm control. Meanwhile, the Black Ink clan knew little about the universe furnace, so even though their masters deduced that the universe furnace opening was an entrance to a sealed world, they dared not make any hasty decisions when they did not have any clear evidence. In addition to that, the humans were also doing their best to suppress the Black Ink clan in the fight, so the latter had to match them with equal force. Thus, masters from both sides fought furious battles around the universe furnace openings on all the different Great Territory battlefields. With each passing breath, scores of masters from both sides died as their souls were extinguished in the empty void. In Azure Sun territory, Luo Tinghe managed to occupy 3 pseudo-royal lords all by herself. It took a lot of effort from her, but she was still able to hold her own against them for now. However, in a different Great Territory, another 9th Order Open Heaven Realm Master was going all out to kill a pseudo-royal lord. This 9th Order Master had a burly physique and wielded a long spear in a fashion quite dissimilar to Yang Kai's supreme limitless spear art. Each swing, sweep, or stab of his spear was imbued with a tyrannical might. The pseudo-royal lord he was hunting down could not fight back at all as he sustained a series of injuries. He would have been killed by now if it had not been for the support he received from another pseudo-royal lord. This 9th Order Master was Wei Junyang of Great Battle Heaven. Luo Tinghe was not the only new 9th Order Master that the human race added to their ranks over the last few millennia. Wei Junyang of Great Battle Heaven was another one, and he happened to be another old acquaintance of Yang Kai's. During Yang Kai's time with the Profound Nether Army, Wei Junyang had once been a division commander under the former's command. He was one of the few humans who had the aptitude to reach the 9th Order back before the appearance of the Open Heaven Realm Cradles. Once the situation in Profound Nether territory was calmed, he went into seclusion to focus on his cultivation. Xiong Shan could not easily reach the 9th Order because his order had fallen once in the past, but Wei Junyang had not encountered such a setback. Though his aptitude was considered a little poorer than Xiong Shan's, his foundation was solid. Hence, after Luo Tinghe broke through and became a 9th Order Master, he soon followed suit. However, Mi Jinglun kept him hidden all this while to prevent him from being noticed by anyone else until the fierce battle broke out today. On this Great Territory battlefield, Wei Junyang wielded the power of a 9th Order Master as he charged right at the enemy. Cultivators from Great Battle Cave Heaven were undeniably disciplined and militaristic, but they were also all eager to fight, and Wei Junyang was no exception. He did not have a divine ability or secret technique that could restrain formidable enemies the way Luo Ting did. All he had to rely on was the long spear in his hands. As soon as he showed up, Wei Junyang shot straight towards one of the pseudo-royal lords and unleashed an all-out strike powered by the full might of his cultivation. He almost managed to split the targeted pseudo-royal lord in two right there and then. Even though the pseudo-royal lord escaped his doom, he was thoroughly terrified now. Following that, the scene of Wei Junyang hunting down the pseudo-royal lord unfolded across the battlefield. It was as if he had zeroed in on this pseudo-royal lord and would not stop until the latter died under his spear. Another pseudo-royal lord had noticed the dire situation and immediately moved to assist. Thus, the scene changed to Wei Junyang chasing after a pseudo-royal lord, while another pseudo-royal lord chased after him. The three figures crossed tens of millions of kilometers as they weaved through the great territory battlefield. Wherever they passed through, masters from both sides all scrambled to get out of the way. Wei Junyang's method was a little blunt and reckless, but it was his resolute stance that enabled him to completely occupy two pseudo-royal lords while really only facing one of them at a time, allowing him to completely control the pace of the fight as all momentum was on his side. If he had to face off against the two pseudo-royal lords in a 2-on-1 fight, he would only be able to keep things even at most. The Black Ink clan had also sent 5 pseudo-royal lords to this great territory, but 2 of them were currently occupied by Wei Junyang, and the one getting chased down was at risk of dying at any moment. As for the other 3, they were similarly held up by the 8th Order Masters who formed battle formations. The divine abilities and secret techniques of the Masters on both sides burst out across the battlefield in great sparks. The two armies formed long defense lines that snaked across the void as they fought with great intensity. On these frenzied battlefields, 3 days felt like forever. As time passed, the situation across the messy battlefields slowly settled into place. Apart from the 3 battlefields that the Black Ink clan had given up on, the 2 armies on the other great territory battlefields were beginning to solidify their control over the openings of the universe furnace. To put it simply, both sides had their wins and losses. The final moments were approaching, and the human race masters on the list began gathering near the openings to the universe furnace. They had to enter now, or else the openings would vanish and it would be too late. While they no longer needed to get involved in the battle outside, there was still a battle waiting for them inside the universe furnace. In Azure Sun territory, Luo Ting was still keeping the 3 pseudo-royal lords occupied, but her yin-yang fish could not hold out much longer. The moment her divine ability faltered, she would no longer be able to restrain all 3 of these enemies. Thus, when Luo Ting saw that most of the chosen human masters had gathered, she ordered, "Go." The 7th Order and 8th Order Masters had been prepared for this and all jumped into the opening to the universe furnace without hesitation. All at once, they disappeared inside. Their actions shocked the Black Ink clan. Even though they had deduced that the opening was an entrance to a sealed world, they dared not be certain about it. Now that they saw what the humans did, they realized that it was indeed as they had thought. The opportunity from the universe furnace was inside, and the human race masters had already rushed in. If the humans gained any more 9th Order Masters, then the Black Ink clan would have wasted countless lives and resources for nothing. Therefore, when the Black Ink clan noticed what was happening, they immediately began focusing their attacks on the entrances, and the 3 pseudo-royal lords who were being suppressed by Luo Ting found the chance to unleash a joint attack. The turbulent force from their combined strikes warped the yin-yang fish. It looked as if it would crumble at any moment now. Initially, the humans had the advantage in Azure Sun territory, but what they worried about had indeed happened. Once a large group of human race masters entered the universe furnace, they lost their advantage and the Black Ink clan seized the chance to go on the offensive. The human race army formed lines of defense all around the opening, but once the Black Ink clan charged at them, the lines began to buckle. All at once, the human race was under great pressure. At the same time, the 3 pseudo-royal lords finally broke free of Luo Ting's suppression. The moment the yin-yang fish divine ability shattered, the 3 of them turned into streaks of darkness that flashed in 3 different directions. Luo Ting could only stop one while she could not do anything about the other 2. Thankfully, After 3 days of intense battle, both she and the 3 pseudo-royal lords had used up a lot of their strength and could not fight at their peak anymore. Even though they broke free, they did not pose a huge danger to the humans. A fury of divine senses streaked across space as the Black Ink clan higher-ups discussed their next move. It was clear that the opening in the universe furnace could be entered, and the opportunity had to be inside. If they ignored the universe furnace, they were strong enough to gain the upper hand on this great territory battlefield, but the human race had a ninth-order master here, so their advantage would not necessarily turn the tides in their favor. Nevertheless, soon, they came to a decision. They decided to give up on the flimsy advantage they had and instead send their own masters into the universe furnace to stop the humans from seizing the opportunities, lest the humans gained even more ninth-order open heaven realm master. The orders went out in secret, and under the command of the pseudo-royal lords, these masters swiftly charged towards the entrance to the universe furnace. They thought the humans would do their best to stop them, and the pseudo-royal lords were mentally prepared to sacrifice some of their masters in order to achieve their goal, but things did not go the way they assumed. Many managed to rush over from all directions and enter the entrance without needing to waste much energy. They could charge straight into the universe furnace. It was as if the humans did not want to stop them. In reality, it was not that the humans did not want to stop them, but the phantom of the universe furnace was colossal and the opening was just too massive. If the Black Ink clan was determined to enter the universe furnace, the humans could not stop all of them. Since they could not do so, they decided to voluntarily let some of their enemies pass, as this would take some pressure off those who remained outside. This was the strategy that those at the Supreme Headquarters had come up with. Mi Jinglun oversaw all the military operations from his place at the Supreme Headquarters, so it was not at all surprising that he foresaw the possibility of the current situation taking place. Once a large number of the human race masters entered the universe furnace, the humans would be weakened and the remaining masters outside would be under intense pressure. If they tried to stop the Black Ink clan completely, it would only result in unnecessary casualties. The best way to ease the burden was to allow some enemies to enter the universe furnace. Naturally, just how many they should allow entry would depend on the situation on the respective Great Territory battlefields. If too many Black Ink clan masters entered the universe furnace, then things would get harder for the humans inside, but if too few were let in, they could not alleviate the pressure off those who remained on the battlefields. It was a fine line, and the human race masters who were in charge of these battlefields would have to decide at their own discretion. Thus, once a certain number of masters from the Black Ink clan rushed into the universe furnace, Luo Ting-he, who seemed exhausted just moments ago, immediately changed. She seemed to burst forth with renewed energy as the yin-yang fish reappeared beneath her and rapidly spread across the void. She then glared at the pseudo-royal lord she had been keeping occupied the whole time and growled, "Ready for round 2? As soon as her crisp, cold voice sounded, it was time for the pseudo-royal lord to meet his doom. Martial Peak, Chapter 5730, Yang Kai had already prepared for this. In the end, Wei Junyang failed to kill the pseudo-royal lord he was hunting down. Even though pseudo-royal lords could only wield around 70% of a true royal lord's power, they were still formidable enough that it would not be easy to get rid of them in one fell swoop. Furthermore, it had not been long since Wei Junyang became a ninth-order master, so his heritage was even weaker than Luo Ting-his. The situation would not be the same if he reached the peak of ninth order. At times like this, Wei Junyang felt envious of Yang Kai's space secret techniques. He believed that if Yang Kai reached the ninth order, it would have been child's play for him to kill a pseudo-royal lord. He could simply use a space secret technique to prevent his opponent from running away from him, whereas Wei Junyang had to doggedly chase down his opponent and still come up short. While Wei Junyang did not want to give up on the chase, time was running out, and he had no other choice. The entrance to the universe furnace was about to close, and he needed to head back over to stand guard over the area and take command of the situation. Otherwise, unexpected crises might occur once the human race masters enter the universe furnace. Even though he could not kill off the pseudo-royal lord, he did manage to severely injure him. For now, that pseudo-royal lord would not be able to do anything else but return to a black ink nest to recuperate. With Wei Junyang personally overseeing the entrance to the universe furnace, the situation there quickly stabilized. Similarly to Azure Sun territory, the human race masters were the first to swiftly enter the universe furnace. Soon, the Black Ink clan masters rushed over as well, and the humans readily allowed some of them to pass through. Things went according to plan at both of these great territories, which had Ninth Order masters overseeing them. Even on the great territory battlefields where the human race were the ones at a disadvantage, the humans' efforts had not been fruitless. The masters who were chosen to enter the universe furnace had already received their instructions from Mi Jing Lun, and they were currently besieging the Black Ink clan's lines of defense as they stormed their way into the universe furnace. Over at Azure Sun territory, the humans could not stop the Black Ink clan from entering despite being the ones with the upper hand, but the same applied to the Black Ink clan on these great territory battlefields as they could not block all the humans. As the Black Ink clan watched the human race masters disappearing into the universe furnace, their decision solidified. Ever since the appearance of the phantom images of the universe furnace, the Black Ink clan had been mimicking their opponents' every move, and they chose to do so this time too. Since the humans wanted to enter the universe furnace, they were going to enter as well. On these great territory battlefields, the Black Ink clan were the ones in control of the entrances to the universe furnace, so nothing stopped them from heading in. However, they soon encountered the same situation that the humans had. As more of them entered the universe furnace, their advantage on the battlefield slowly diminished. The Black Ink clan were in complete control of the universe furnace entrance on the barren territory, whereas the humans were in control of the openings on the three great territory battlefields that the Black Ink clan had given up. As for the remaining entrances, the advantage oscillated between the two sides, and the situation constantly changed. At last, the 3 days were over, and the universe furnace projections in each great territory suddenly began shaking violently. Everyone was unprepared as they witnessed the universe furnaces abruptly turning into wisps of light before completely vanishing. The disappearance of the universe furnace was a pivotal turning point for the battles on each great territory battlefield. All this while, the two sides had been fighting in the vicinity of the universe furnace projections. Naturally, this brought about certain limitations in terms of the scope of military operations. For the most part, the party with the upper hand would organize their masters near the entrance to guard it. Now that the entrances were gone, the limitations were lifted as well. Wei Junyang took a deep breath. He felt as if he had shrugged off a layer of restraints, and the air was clear again. He raised his long spear as he roared so loudly that his voice reached across the great territory. "Are you ready to die, Black Ink clan bastard?" Previously, he could not freely unleash his full power. As the Ninth Order master who was in command here, he had to consider many variables. Otherwise, he would not have given up on his attempt to kill the injured pseudo-royal lord to come back and stand guard at the entrance to the universe furnace. However, there was nothing to hold him back now. The Black Ink clan in this great territory were going to have to sear a name into their memories. It was going to be his name, Wei Junyang of Great Battle Heaven. Meanwhile, Luo Ting he was also finally able to unleash her full strength, and she boldly stormed into the Black Ink clan army's ranks. It was as if the yin-yang fish had taken on a physical form as the massive image churned through 1,000,000 Black Ink clan soldiers. Yin and yang swirled together to grind down these enemies, reducing them to smashed meat and pools of blood. Originally, Mi Jing Lun considered sending one of the two new Ninth Order masters into the universe furnace to aid the human race masters as they went in to seize opportunities. However, after a discussion with Xiong Shan, he gave up on that idea. Once the universe furnace surfaced, the battles between the human race and the Black Ink clan would surely erupt. All the previous agreements and pacts would undoubtedly lose all meaning, and it was far more valuable to have the two Ninth Order masters out on the battlefields instead of inside the universe furnace. The Ninth Order masters did not need to get involved with the goings-on inside the universe furnace. Opportunities always came with risks. If the human race masters inside needed a Ninth Order master to aid them as they went in search of these opportunities, then it would not be unreasonable to consider all their centuries and millennia of cultivation a waste. Furthermore, the area inside the universe furnace was boundless, so even if a Ninth Order master went in, they might not be able to contribute much. At the time, Bloodcrow, who had been listening on the side, casually remarked, "I don't know whether or not a Ninth Order master can enter the universe furnace, but the last time it opened, none of the Ninth Order Masters or Royal Lords went in. Perhaps it's just a coincidence, or perhaps the universe furnace imposes a limit on the cultivation realm of those who enter. Either way, the two new Ninth Order Masters did not enter the universe furnace. However, Mi Jinglun was certain that the dangers inside the universe furnace this time would far surpass all the previous times in history. This was because many pseudo-royal lords had entered as well, and the Black Ink clan most likely did not have pseudo-royal lords the last time the universe furnace emerged, so this situation had no precedent to judge from. It would be a challenging trial for the human race masters who entered the universe furnace this time. When the universe furnace phantoms vanished, tremors were felt across the 3,000 worlds and the entire Black Ink battlefield. Over at Wind Mist territory, Xiao Xiao and Wu Qing were sitting cross-legged. World force was circling around them, rippling through the air. There was a rip in the boundary wall in front of them, and a gargantuan arm stretched out. The massive arm looked like a pillar that cut through the void. The chains that wound tightly around the arm were created by the two Ninth Order old ancestors using some kind of joint secret technique. Many millennia had passed since the Black Ink giant spirit god broke through the boundary wall between Wind Mist territory and the Barren territory to let the Black Ink clan army launch its invasion into the 3,000 worlds. Xiao Xiao and Wu Qing had been sitting in the same spot for just as many millennia as they engaged in a cross-territory battle with the Black Ink giant spirit god. It was impossible for the two to fight a Black Ink giant spirit god head-to-head, let alone restrain one of his arms, but when they were separated by the boundary wall, the power that the Black Ink giant spirit god could wield greatly weakened. Furthermore, this Black Ink giant spirit god sustained serious injuries previously, which allowed Xiao Xiao and Wu Qing to restrain him all these years. Over 1,000 years ago though, the Black Ink giant spirit god managed to restore much of his strength, causing the two Ninth Order Masters to experience even more pressure. Thankfully, Yang Kai came in time and used purifying light to grind down their opponent's strength. However, over 1,000 years had passed since then, and the Black Ink giant spirit god's power was restored little by little over that time. Xiao Xiao and Wu Qing did not know how much longer they could hold out. The universe furnace had appeared, and they could sense the rumbles of the universe's grand Tao. They exchanged a glance in silence as they knew a major change was about to come. At that very moment, the Black Ink giant spirit god who never bothered to interact with them throughout the many millennia started laughing out of the blue. Its laughter came through the rip. The humans will soon be exterminated. As its voice came through, the chains around its arm vibrated slightly before letting out a hissing sound. Wu Qing and Xiao Xiao did not hesitate even for a breath as they quickly channeled their powers, using their world force to strengthen the chains. The Black Ink giant spirit god did not make another futile attempt. It was as if it had only been testing things out earlier, but even so, the Ninth Order Masters felt heavily pressured. You can run your mouth when you're able to escape unscathed. Wu Qing coldly snorted. The Black Ink giant spirit god scoffed, but did not respond. Wu Qing's expression was dark, and his brow was furrowed tightly. He could tell that the Black Ink giant spirit god could have escaped a long time ago if it wanted to. The latter simply had to cut off the arm that he and Xiao Xiao were restraining. However, the Black Ink giant spirit god was evidently unwilling to suffer such a loss. That was why it did not do much and allowed the two to restrain it here. All these years, it was quietly gathering its strength in order to escape unscathed, and from the looks of it, it would happen soon. Moreover, no Black Ink clansman had ever come to disrupt the two throughout these years, and clearly, something was strange about that too. They were keeping the Black Ink giant spirit god occupied here, but was it not also doing the same to them? Perhaps the Black Ink clan wants to change things now. Wu Qing could not resist glancing at Xiao Xiao, who remained unperturbed. She was holding something in her hand that was hidden beneath her sleeve, and she nodded at him before using divine sense transmission to say, Yang Kai had already prepared for this. What she held was something that Yang Kai had secretly given her when he came to check on them previously. She had furtively studied the item, and once she realized what it was, she was both shocked and in awe. However, she kept quiet about this and did not even inform Wu Qing because too much was at stake, and she had to guard against the Black Ink giant spirit god's probing. Hence, Wu Qing was startled when he heard Xiao Xiao and frowned as he asked, Do you have so much faith in that boy? Xiao Xiao smirked before firmly declaring, it's not just my faith in him. He has given the human race something that allows us to be this confident. Faith alone was meaningless. What she held in her hand was the most important key to dealing with this black ink giant spirit god. All was well if their opponent chose to stay put and do nothing, but if he tried to escape, it would be time for her to use the trump card in her possession. Wu Qing nodded lightly and did not ask for more details. He was also a Ninth Order master, but he was unfamiliar with Yang Kai. He had been an army commander at Yinyang Pass, then the old ancestor of the Yinyang Theater during Yang Kai's rise to prominence, so his interactions with Yang Kai were minimal. He had many rumors which, simply put, described Yang Kai as a junior who often created unexpected but definitely pleasant surprises. As such, he took the simple approach of, I shall wait and see. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5731, Inside the Universe Furnace. The air was filled with endless, chaotic Tao essence. It was as if Grand Tao had shattered in this area. Both space and time seemed blurred. This was what it was like inside the universe furnace. It was an expansive world that was mysterious and unimaginable. Yang Kai traversed through the void as he used his great sun and moon marks to locate the 9 open heaven pills. He was also familiarizing himself with the environment. He did not know much about the universe furnace, but based on what he experienced, he was able to confirm that the opportunity from the universe furnace was found inside it. Thus, he surmised that both the human race and the Black Ink clan would send a large number of masters into the universe furnace, and Mo Na Yi, who was caught inside the universe furnace's projection with him, would have probably entered the universe furnace world by now. Yang Kai raised his brow ever so slightly. He was determined to give Mo Na Yi a hard time if their paths crossed. Had it been any other time, Yang Kai would not be able to hold his own against Mo Na Yi, but back when they were in the universe furnace projection, he had given Mo Na Yi a heavy beating, so it remained to be seen whether the latter could even wield a third of his power. If they did run into each other, Yang Kai might even be able to kill Mo Na Yi. Alas, the universe furnace world seemed endless. It would not be easy to run into Mo Na Yi. Yang Kai quieted his thoughts and continued surveying the universe furnace world. He thought that this sealed world would be empty on the inside. After all, this was merely the space inside the universe furnace. It did not experience the changes of the heavenly way like the many great territories outside. There was nothing but chaotic and disorderly Tao essence inside this place, so what could possibly exist here? However, as Yang Kai traveled through the universe furnace world, he realized how mistaken he was. Exceptional scenery was found inside the universe furnace. Mysterious sights could be found wherever the chaotic and disorderly Tao essence gathered. These scenes could rarely be seen outside, and they were similar to the many celestial phenomena he had seen deep within the Black Ink battlefield. The largest of all these was a great river. Yang Kai did not know where the great river started or where it ended. It meandered on, and Yang Kai followed it as he observed the universe furnace world around him. However, he had been traveling for 3 days and crossed a few billion kilometers already, yet the end of the river was nowhere in sight. The great river was brimming with the chaotic shattered Tao essence. It seemed to be made entirely out of it, the kind that was impossible for cultivators to absorb and refine. To Yang Kai's even greater shock, strange living beings existed inside the great river. When he first encountered the great river, he had approached it out of curiosity as he wanted to check what it was, but soon, he was attacked by an unidentifiable monster. It was hard to describe the monster as, not only did it not have a fixed form, but even its presence was difficult to sense. It seemed to be one with the great river as Yang Kai did not detect it at all before it attacked him. Even its strength was hard to ascertain, but fortunately, Yang Kai had his guard up the whole time since he was in an unfamiliar environment, allowing him to avoid the attack. After Yang Kai's abrupt encounter with this monster, he wanted to catch it and study it close up. A bout of intense fighting took place, but even though he managed to overpower the monster, it swiftly dove into the great river and vanished completely. It was as if it had only been a wave that rippled out of the strange great river or a part of the river itself. Following that encounter, Yang Kai made a few more probes and was finally able to confirm that unending dangers were hidden inside the seemingly peaceful Great River. Those peculiar monsters were easily found everywhere as well. I can't believe that such a peculiar living thing can be found inside the universe furnace. To avoid wasting time, Yang Kai did not enter the Great River again to do his inspection. He merely followed it. 3 days later, Yang Kai came across a strange scene. He looked up and saw a massive mountain range with towering peaks cutting through the void in front of him. Yang Kai was awed by the fact that such things could be seen inside the universe furnace. Not only did he come across the great river that began and ended beyond his sight, but he was also now staring at a colossal mountain range. The mysteries of the universe furnace are far greater than I thought. He used his great sun and moon marks to see if he picked up on anything, but he did not. In other words, the 9 top-quality open heaven pills were not within his detectable range. After a brief moment of hesitation, Yang Kai began heading towards the mountain range. He knew too little about the universe furnace, so it was better for him to familiarize himself with his surroundings above all else. Just like the great river that seemed to span the entire universe furnace world, the mountain range seemed perfectly ordinary when observed from a distance. However, upon closer inspection, Yang Kai realized that the mountain range was also made up of bountiful shattered Tao essence. It appeared to balance between the line of something that was material and immaterial. The great river was home to those strange monsters, so what about this mountain range? Divine sense seemed to be severely hindered in this place, so even someone of Yang Kai's caliber could not examine much further than his immediate surroundings. He experienced this firsthand when he scouted inside the great river, and it seemed to be caused by the interference from the shattered Tao essence. Yang Kai moved around without finding anything useful, so he was just about to leave when he came to an abrupt halt and looked into the distance. He noticed some kind of energy fluctuations coming from somewhere up ahead. There's a fight happening over there. Yang Kai raised his brow and immediately dashed over. Soon, he saw the 2 parties engaged in a fight. He was a little startled to find that neither one of the 2 was a friendly party to him. One was from the Black Ink clan, and from the looks of his aura, he was a feudal lord. The other was one of the strange monsters that Yang Kai had encountered at the Great River earlier. I didn't think they'd be found in this mountain range either. It had been difficult for Yang Kai to determine the power of the monsters he encountered at the Great River, and the same applied to this one as well. Even though he could not detect any form of formidable power inside this monster, it was able to hold its own against a feudal lord and was even beginning to overpower him. The monster did not have a fixed physical form. It was mysteriously able to transform into various shapes as the shattered Tao essence that formed its body kept flowing and moving about. It made the monster look like a mass of flowing water. Shattered Tao essence kept shooting out of its body and turning into streaks of bizarre attacks that made the feudal lord back away in defeat. It was clear that the feudal lord had realized he could not defeat the monster, so after a brief tussle, he began showing signs of retreat. He began channeling black ink strength, and with a flicker of his body, a black ink cloud exploded out of him before enveloping the monster. He used this distraction to flee at once. However, he had not gotten very far when the space around him suddenly solidified and he felt a tight grip around his neck as someone effortlessly locked him in place. The feudal lord was petrified as he turned around and looked right into a grinning face. A human. An 8th order master. A terrifying name immediately popped up in the feudal lord's head and he all but shrieked, Yang Kai. His heart grew cold. He never would have thought he would be this unlucky. He had only just entered the universe furnace when he was attacked by that strange monster, and before he could even make a proper escape, he was caught by the human killing star. How am I going to make it out of here alive? Oh, you recognize me? Yang Kai looked at the feudal lord with a smile before gently setting him down. He did not do anything to restrain the feudal lord, but the latter just stood in front of him in total submission without having even the guts to move. The feudal lord knew that whether it was fighting back or running away, both were absolutely impossible in front of this human race master who held the record for the most Black Ink clan masters killed. He nodded bitterly in response to Yang Kai's question. Of course I recognize you, Sir Yang Kai. Yang Kai nodded. His encounter with this feudal lord confirmed his earlier suspicion. The opportunity from the universe furnace would need to be found inside the universe furnace. Since the Black Ink clan had entered, then the humans would have come in as well. However, it was far too vast inside the universe furnace, and the chaotic Tao essence continued to cause interference with one's divine sense, so it would not be easy to run into the other humans. It's just as well. I need someone who can tell me about the situation outside. As such, he swiftly said, since you recognize me, let's not waste any time. Answer a few of my questions and I'll make sure your end is painless. The feudal lord's expression became even more bitter and melancholic. I knew it. No good will come out of running into the killing star. I won't be leaving with my life. Since he was going to die either way, he decided to ignore Yang Kai. Yang Kai saw right through his thoughts and coolly remarked, after so many years of war, with both sides going all out to kill each other, you from the Black Ink clan have probably never seen what humans can truly do. For instance, I have a method called soul extraction and refinement. Death is not the most painful end out there. There are many fates that are far worse than death. As he spoke, Yang Kai stretched his hand out towards the feudal lord's head, and with a flicker of his divine sense, he ripped through the protection around the latter's soul. Yang Kai withdrew his hand a moment later, but the feudal lord had crumpled to the ground and was trembling violently. His eyes refused to close as they nearly bulged out of their sockets. He had just experienced pain and suffering so terrifying he had never even conceived of it before now. What he felt for just the briefest moment was enough for him to understand what Yang Kai meant by a fate worse than death. I'll ask and you'll answer. You know what'll happen to you if you lie to me or attempt to hide anything, Yang Kai commanded as he looked down at the feudal lord. The feudal lord nodded frantically. He dared not disobey Yang Kai anymore. What's the situation like outside? I don't know. The feudal lord shook his head. His expression was timid as he said, I came in from the entrance on the barren territory, so I don't know what's happening on the other battlefields. This was also why he recognized Yang Kai right away. Since he came from the barren territory, he would have been stationed at the no-return pass not long ago, and Yang Kai had been loitering around outside the no-return pass for the past many years. The feudal lord had seen Yang Kai from a distance when the latter wreaked havoc at the no-return pass a while back. Yang Kai frowned. How many from the Black Ink clan entered from the barren territory? I don't know exactly how many, but we had between 5 and 8 million clansmen at the barren territory, and once the entrance solidified, everyone came in as ordered by Sir Royal Lord. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5732, Observation. Between 5 to 8 million. Let's go with 7 million then. That's still a significant number. Does the Black Ink clan intend on starting a full-scale war inside the universe furnace? Then again, the Black Ink clan might have even less of an understanding of the universe furnace than Yang Kai did, so they probably didn't expect it to be this complex inside. Even though they threw in several million of their people, they wouldn't be able to accomplish much. Yang Kai quickly thought of something. Since several million of you came in together, why are you here alone? Where are the others? The feudal lord shook his head and said, as soon as I came in, I found myself alone and couldn't see any of my other clansmen. The opening seems to have the ability to affect space. Everyone was separated. Yang Kai frowned the moment he heard this as a flicker of worry emerged in his heart. If the Black Ink clan army had been separated despite entering from the same opening, then it must be the same for the human race masters. In other words, everyone would have to proceed alone the moment they entered the universe furnace, or spend time seeking out allies as soon as possible. However, it would not be easy to find an ally inside the universe furnace. Most of the humans who came in would be 8th Order masters. If they ran into a territory lord alone, it would still be an even fight as both parties were on a similar footing. However, if they ran into a pseudo-royal lord such as Mo Na Yi, then they would be in a disastrous situation. There was no telling how many human race masters would die in this bid for opportunities inside the universe furnace. However, it was possible that those at the Supreme Headquarters would have made some kind of arrangement. Yang Kai had been stuck inside a universe furnace projection ever since it appeared, so he did not have any contact with the humans. That being said, he was aware of Mi Jing Lun's meticulous nature. The latter would surely gather as much information regarding the universe furnace as possible and come up with strategies to deal with all the possible scenarios. If I run into a human who's alone, I can lend a hand too. Yang Kai eased his worries with this thought. Now that things had come to this, there was no point in worrying about it. The humans who dared to enter the universe furnace in search of opportunities would have mentally prepared themselves for the possibility of losing their lives. On the other hand, the Black Ink clan who entered were separated too, and since their understanding of the universe furnace was a lot poorer than the humans, they would not have expected this situation. This meant that for the time being, perhaps the humans were not at a disadvantage when compared to the Black Ink clan. This feudal lord had been stationed at the no-return pass the whole time and had entered from the entrance in the barren territory, so he did not know much about the other great territory battlefields. Yang Kai asked a few more questions, but he could not answer any of them. Since there was no other useful information to glean from this feudal lord, Yang Kai did not want to waste any more time and slowly raised his hand. Upon sensing Yang Kai's motive, the feudal lord hurriedly cried out, "Sir Yang Kai, I will tell you a piece of information that's useful to the humans in exchange for my life." "Oh." Yang Kai eyed him with interest. "Information that's useful to the humans? What is it?" The feudal lord was sweating profusely as he gritted his teeth and said, "I know you are a man of your word, Sir Yang Kai. I'm sure you won't go back on your promise. Enough. I'll spare your life if your information does prove to be useful." Yang Kai impatiently cut him off. The feudal lord exhaled in relief and carefully explained, "It's about the open heaven pills that the humans want." Yang Kai frowned and asked doubtfully, "You've seen the open heaven pills?" He had used his great sun and moon marks not long ago and had not sensed anything, which meant that the 9 open heaven pills he marked were not in the vicinity, so where did this feudal lord see them? Amid his puzzlement, the feudal lord pointed behind them and said, "One was devoured by that strange thing back there. I saw it with my own eyes. That's why I got into a fight with it. I wanted to kill it and take the open heaven pill." Yang Kai turned his head around and saw something floundering inside the black ink cloud. It was the monster that came from this place. Yang Kai's lips twitched as he got the gist of it now. The feudal lord did see an open heaven pill, but it was not the kind that Yang Kai was hunting down. It was one of the lower grade ones. Yang Kai had witnessed the creation of the open heaven pills, so that was how he knew there were 2 different grades of open heaven pills, but the Black Ink clan did not. The feudal lord had immediately assumed that the open heaven pill he saw was the opportunity the human race masters wanted. There was nothing wrong with his information, but it barely mattered. Yang Kai slammed his hand against the feudal lord and with a surge of world force, the feudal lord was sent flying backwards. He spat out a mouthful of blood. He was certain that Yang Kai was reneging on the promise and that he was doomed to die, but to his surprise, he landed with his life still intact. Scram! Yang Kai's voice rang out from a distance. The feudal lord felt as if he had been granted a heavenly pardon, so he loudly called out, "Many thanks, Sir Yang Kai." Then, he turned into a black ink cloud and fled at once in spite of his injuries. A heavily injured feudal lord was severely weakened, so letting him go was not a big deal. Yang Kai was not someone who would easily choose to renege on a promise he made. Moreover, he could even use this feudal lord to let the word get out that he, Yang Kai, had already gotten an open heaven pill. Some from the Black Ink clan would surely turn their attention onto him, which would ease the burden on the other human race masters. Even though he could not defeat a pseudo-royal lord, he could still escape from one fairly easily. At this moment, Yang Kai's curiosity was mostly piqued by the monster. More specifically, why did it devour an open heaven pill? Yang Kai surmised that these peculiar monsters were common inside the universe furnace as he had seen a number of them in the Great River and now encountered another one at the mountain range. Open heaven pills are created inside the universe furnace too. Do they benefit these monsters in some way? With a flick of his hand, the black ink cloud left by the feudal lord dispersed to reveal the monster that was still stumbling around woozily. Endless shattered Tao essence flowed and surged like water across its body, which kept changing forms as a result. Previously, Yang Kai did not pay much attention to this monster, but after hearing what the feudal lord said, he took a closer look and finally noticed something unusual. There was indeed an open heaven pill inside the monster. It was wrapped inside the monster's shattered Tao essence, and its aura occasionally peaked only to disappear again. Yang Kai could not tell whether this monster counted as a living being or not, but judging by how a black ink cloud from a feudal lord was enough to hinder it, it would not be a living being of high sentience, even if it was technically alive. However, Yang Kai was a little puzzled as he wondered why it did not merge with the mountain range. During his explorations back at the Great River, the monsters would merge with the Great River when they realized they could not defeat the one they were up against, which made it hard for Yang Kai to track or capture one. Logically speaking, the monster in front of him now would also have the ability to merge with the mountain range. The foundation of both the monster and the mountain range seemed similar as they were both created from shattered Tao essence. It would be possible for them to completely merge together. Alas, Yang Kai's thoughts instantly turned into reality. As soon as he finished pondering, the monster showed signs of attempting to merge with the mountain range. He was about to stop the monster when he quickly halted. Yang Kai watched as the monster tried to sink into the mountain range, but it was to no avail. It was as if the mountain range rejected it. The monster lay flat on the ground like a puddle of flowing water, and the open heaven pill's aura was exposed once more. It was indeed a lower-grade open heaven pill. Yang Kai had collected a few of these earlier, so they were not unfamiliar to him. He could have claimed the open heaven pill for himself if he wanted, but Yang Kai was curious to see what would happen, so he did not immediately act. He had a gut feeling that it was more important to figure out why the monster devoured the open heaven pill. The puddle of water started moving and the open heaven pill aura followed along as well. The monster kept trying to merge with the mountain range at different spots, but nothing worked. After observing all of this, Yang Kai finally realized why that was the case. The monster had absorbed a trace of the open heaven pill's medicinal efficacies, and the shattered Tao essence that it was made up of changed ever so slightly. That was the reason why it could not merge with the mountain range, though they were originally formed of the same substance. Thoughts began coursing through Yang Kai's mind. Does this mean it wasn't pointless for the monster to devour an open heaven pill? Was it an instinctive act? What happens if it completely absorbs the open heaven pill? It was just a unique being that was born inside the universe furnace. After mulling things over for a short while, Yang Kai abruptly stretched his hand out in a grabbing motion while opening a portal to his small universe. With the restriction from Yang Kai's use of space principles, he was able to grab the fluid-like monster from the ground and toss it into his small universe without giving it any time to react. Then, with a single thought, Yang Kai used the power of the small universe to lock down the monster. At the same time, he used the Grand Tao of Time to control the flow of time inside a small restricted area. Time raced forward in that small portion of his small universe. It was already 10 times faster than the outside world, to begin with, and with what he did now, time flew by even faster within the confined region. Yang Kai went full force with this. Thus, it was only a blink of an eye in the world outside, but the monster experienced an entire month of time. The monster kept harnessing and refining the medicinal efficacies of the open heaven pill. It was slowly absorbed into its body. Yang Kai noticed that an unexpected change was slowly taking place with the chaotic and disorderly Tao essence that originally formed the monster's body. The Tao essence was gaining order and structure, and along with this, the monster's form kept changing as well. When Yang Kai first encountered these monsters, he could not even determine whether they were living beings or not because they did not have any of the characteristics found in living beings. Yet, as the monster absorbed the medicinal efficacies of the open heaven pill, its form changed as well, and it was slowly giving off the aura of a living creature. The changes were becoming increasingly noticeable. At last, when the open heaven pill was fully absorbed and completely disappeared inside the monster's body, the monster in front of Yang Kai was no longer a mass of free-flowing fluid. Its form kept changing until a silhouette appeared. Then the silhouette continued refining itself until what finally appeared in front of Yang Kai's eyes was a figure that looked similar to that of a human. The efficacy of the attack was only about a third of its full strength. Furthermore, these monsters' physical bodies were odd and hard to injure. Nevertheless, they had weaknesses too. Tao strengths were able to restrain them significantly. Earlier on, Yang Kai harnessed his Dao strengths as he attacked the monster. As a result, the monster howled in agony before disappearing like snow melting under the summer sun, leaving nothing but its destroyed remains behind. Following all the experiments Yang Kai did, he came to one conclusion. It was going to be somewhat tricky to deal with these monsters from the universe furnace. After taking the remains out of his small universe, he began to examine everything once more. He only stopped once he confirmed there would not be any lingering danger. The most beneficial opportunities inside the universe furnace were the 9 special open heaven pills that would allow the human race masters to reach the 9th order. However, the ordinary innate open heaven pills were clearly valuable too, so it would not do to pass up on them if found. Since there was an ordinary open heaven pill here, there could be more. Yang Kai quickly began his search through the mountain range. It was formed solely of chaotic Tao essence, and it was not easy to search for treasure in a place like this. His divine sense was hindered and he could not inspect much further from where he was. Thankfully, Yang Kai could move quickly and soon finished combing through the mountain range, finding 2 ordinary open heaven pills. Both of these had been swallowed by the native monsters, but due to this, they could not hide their presence and Yang Kai easily found them. With the surge of Tao strengths directed at them, the 2 monsters swiftly turned into smithereens, and Yang Kai collected the open heaven pills with great ease. All of a sudden, he realized that native monsters shared a similarity with him. They were just as good at escaping as he was. That being said, as long as he was able to restrict their ability to flee, it would not be too hard for him to deal with them. This applied to Yang Kai too, and he quietly mused to himself. The Black Ink clan probably thought of this solution to deal with me too, so that was why they had to set up that heaven-sealing earth-locking grand array. Once again, Yang Kai continued traveling along the meandering Great River. Throughout the journey, he saw many of the curious and intriguing sights of this sealed world that were real eye-openers for him. He did also run into several Black Ink clansmen who were alone. The Black Ink clan army had been separated when they came in, but there were still millions of them, so it was unsurprising that Yang Kai ran into them. There was not much to be said about dealing with them as Yang Kai just executed them on the spot as soon as he spotted them. Space and time in this place seemed to grow hazy as it was filled with chaotic Tao essence. Yang Kai did not know how long he had been traveling, but after doing so for what must have been quite some time, he suddenly sensed disturbances from a fight taking place up ahead. The cultivation realm of both parties was not low by any means. Yang Kai's gaze hardened as he hid his aura and used space principles to fade into the void before rushing straight for the fight. Soon, he arrived and saw an 8th Order Master battling a Territory Lord. The Territory Lord seemed to be an acquired Territory Lord, and the 8th Order Master was an unfamiliar face. Yang Kai had never seen him before, so he figured that this person must have become an 8th Order Master fairly recently. The two were evenly matched in battle, but both the 8th Order Master and the Territory Lord were clearly holding back, neither of them going all out. This was not because they were averse to killing each other, but because a fight inside the universe furnace would naturally draw attention. If a newcomer was an ally, then it would be great, but if it was an enemy, then the situation would become dangerous. By reserving some of their strength, they would be able to escape if they sensed that things were going south for them. Thus, even though the fight was intense, it was unlikely to result in an actual death on either side. All in all, neither one could defeat the other in this kind of battle. Yang Kai quietly observed for a brief moment before secretly communicating with the 8th Order Master. The latter was deeply shocked, but he did not let it show on his face. The next breath, he suddenly caught the Territory Lord unaware by launching an attack with full force. However, the Territory Lord had been on guard and swiftly counterattacked with full strength as well. Just then, a figure popped up behind him like a ghost. Mysterious Tao strengths flared as space solidified and time blurred. Just as the Territory Lord's perception was disrupted by space-time strength, a large hand reached out to him from behind and smashed down on his head. His head collapsed into his chest and his forehead split open. The 8th Order Master also launched a series of divine abilities and secret techniques to kill the Territory Lord at once. He was delighted from having killed a strong opponent and was about to greet Yang Kai when the latter's expression changed. Yang Kai turned in a certain direction. The very next moment, His figure dashed off into the distance and disappeared. "Stay here and wait for me," the Eighth Order Master heard a voice saying to him. At first, the Eighth Order Master was a little confused, but he soon realized what was happening and felt belated fear. He knew he would have been in a disastrous situation if Yang Kai had not come along and given him a hand. After cleaning up the battlefield a little and consuming a spirit pill to replenish himself, he stood still and waited. A moment later, Yang Kai reappeared. The Eighth Order Master immediately cupped his fist and bowed. "Wolf Fang Army, Liao Zheng greets Sir Yang." They were both Eighth Order Masters, but Liao Zheng looked rather excited. It was as if he was meeting someone he greatly admired. In reality, that was exactly what was happening. Among the rising stars of the human race, no one was as famous or lauded as Yang Kai, not even Mi Jinglun, who oversaw the Supreme Headquarters, or the new Ninth Order Masters. The humans went through many crises and difficulties after the Great Evacuation all those years ago, and Yang Kai's efforts largely contributed to the human race's ability to hang on thus far. Without Yang Kai, profound nether territory would have been lost. Without Yang Kai, the rising stars would not have had a suitable place to temper themselves and cultivate. Without Yang Kai, the human race would not have purifying light, and the Black Ink clan would not be hindered as much as they were now. When these rising stars first started cultivating, their seniors told them stories of Yang Kai's many contributions. Their seniors wanted them to know how everything the human race had now come to be, and for them to look up to Yang Kai and follow in his footsteps. The respect and admiration they had for Yang Kai was seared deep into their hearts. It would not be affected no matter how much stronger they became in terms of cultivation. Yang Kai nodded lightly and observed the Eighth Order Master before saying with a smile, "We're both Eighth Order Masters. Just address me as senior brother. You don't need to address me as sir." At that moment, he suddenly understood what it must have been like for Wei Junyang and Ouyou Yang Lai when they met him back then in Profound Nether Territory. Before he returned to Profound Nether Territory, both Wei Junyang and Ouyou Yang Lai were his seniors, but upon meeting them again after becoming an Eighth Order Master himself, they insisted on interacting with him as equals. For Open Heaven Realm Masters, age was not the deciding factor in the way they interacted with and addressed each other. It was based on their cultivation. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5734, Information. Liao Zheng was visibly overwhelmed at being shown such respect. He could not bring himself to address Yang Kai as senior brother Yang. Yang Kai wrapped Liao Zheng up in space principles and said, "This isn't a good place to talk. Come with me." A few moments later, Yang Kai and Liao Zheng reappeared beside the great river. Liao Zheng fell into a daze when he saw the magnificent river. He exclaimed, "So, this is the infinite river. It's endless indeed. Do you know about this river?" Yang Kai quipped puzzledly. "Before we came in, we received information about what it was like inside the universe furnace," Liao Zheng replied. "Senior brother Bloodcrow also shared some information with us, which included records of the infinite river." Yang Kai's eyes lit up. "How much do all of you know about the universe furnace?" Bloodcrow was indeed someone who entered the universe furnace before. He must have gotten the open heaven pills that were stolen and stored in Blood Monster Cave Heaven from the universe furnace. It would not be hard for the humans to gather information about the universe furnace when they had Bloodcrow who had first-hand experience. This information was what Yang Kai urgently needed. Although the universe furnace sucked him in much earlier than everyone else, he barely knew anything about the situation here. Liao Zheng quickly took out an empty jade slip. "Please give me a moment, senior brother. I will record everything that I know. Before we came in, senior brother Mi told us that if any of us runs into you, senior brother Yang, we must give you the information about the universe furnace right away." Yang Kai nodded and waited. With a surge of divine sense, Liao Zheng soon added all the information he had into the jade slip before passing it to Yang Kai. Yang Kai took the jade slip and began examining the information. True enough, he saw the records of the infinite river. He noted that the humans intended to use this river as a means of regrouping. They knew beforehand that they would be separated upon entering the universe furnace and that it would be challenging for them to gather once more because the world inside the universe furnace was boundless. Even though they brought things that would aid them in communication, it would still be difficult to locate each other in such a vast, open space. Though, if they were physically connected in some way, such as holding hands, before they entered the universe furnace, then they would be transported to the same place instead of getting separated. Apart from that, nothing else would work, not even if they used aura or a secret technique to maintain a connection. However, the battle had been incredibly intense throughout all the great territory battlefields, save for the 3 that the Black Ink clan gave up on from the start. Liao Zhang had come from the Wolf Fang territory battlefield where the Black Ink clan had the upper hand, so the human masters had to force their way past the Black Ink clan's defense lines to enter the universe furnace. Although they acted together, it was difficult for all of them to maintain physical contact with each other, so Liao Zhang entered the universe furnace alone. Many human masters managed to enter in small groups of 3 to 5, which meant that their safety was less of a concern. After learning this, Yang Kai heaved a small sigh of relief. He had been worried that the 8th Order Masters would suffer if they ran into any pseudo-royal lords, but based on what he knew now, the situation would not be as bad as he thought. Groups of 3 to 5 8th Order Masters could form battle formations that gave them a fighting chance against a pseudo-royal lord. For masters who entered the universe furnace separately because they could not maintain physical contact with anyone else, Blood Crow suggested that they locate the Infinite River as soon as they arrived and follow it. That way, they would eventually run into allies no matter which direction they traveled. This was a way to meet up with other human race masters who had been separated. That was the reason why Yang Kai, who was also following the Infinite River as he had no better idea, picked up on the fight between Liao Zhang and the Territory Lord. Liao Zhang had been searching for the Infinite River to regroup with the others. Yang Kai continued checking the information and saw some regarding the open heaven pills created inside the universe furnace. It was just as he deduced. There were different grades of open heaven pills. Based on the way Blood Crow categorized them, the 9 best open heaven pills were considered supreme grade while the rest were ordinary grade. Supreme grade open heaven pills could help the human 8th Order Masters become 9th Order Masters, but these ordinary grade open heaven pills were extremely valuable too. Consuming them would help a master break through their bottlenecks and save time by foregoing many years of cultivating in seclusion. However, Yang Kai began frowning at another piece of information. He looked up and asked, "The supreme grade open heaven pills might help a territory lord become a royal lord. Did Blood Crow explain why?" All along, Yang Kai assumed that the open heaven pills from the universe furnace were opportunities that belonged to the human race. Even if the Black Ink clan masters entered this place, they only did so to stop the humans from gaining these opportunities. However, the information he now had stated that the Black Ink clan could also benefit from these opportunities. Yang Kai did not understand this. Why is it that a supreme grade open heaven pill can help a territory lord become a royal lord? Liao Zhang explained. Senior brother Xiong asked about this too, and senior brother Blood Crow couldn't explain exactly why that might be the case. He speculated that this is due to the mysterious nature of the open heaven pills. Anyone, regardless of whether they're a human or a Black Ink clansman, would be able to break through their barriers if they consumed a supreme grade open heaven pill. Yang Kai frowned as this was troubling news. The Black Ink clan's goal was to stop the humans from gaining these opportunities, but this information meant that they had every reason to seize these opportunities for themselves too. If a territory lord found one of the 9 supreme grade open heaven pills and became a royal lord, then the humans would not only lose a chance to gain a 9th Order Master, but would also gain a formidable opponent. A gain for one meant a loss for the other. It would be a terrible loss for the humans. The good news was the fact that the Black Ink clan barely knew anything about the universe furnace and even less about the supreme grade open heaven pills. They probably had no idea that the supreme grade open heaven pills were beneficial to them yet. However, this would easily be discovered once a Black Ink clan master managed to get a supreme grade open heaven pill. There was no way of hiding this information. Yang Kai was even more concerned by the fact that the supreme grade open heaven pills did not only work on the humans and the Black Ink clan, but even the native monsters would benefit greatly from them. The information inside the Jade Slip included records of the strange monsters inside the universe furnace. They were called chaos entities, and these were the ones Yang Kai encountered in the Infinite River and at the mountain range. Blood Crow did have a solid understanding of the situation inside the universe furnace, as expected of someone who had first-hand experience in the search for opportunities. There were different types of chaos entities. The ones made up of chaotic shattered Tao essence were the simplest of the chaos entities. While it was not easy to deal with them, it was not difficult either. As long as the masters attacked with their Tao strengths, they could be defeated. Apart from the countless chaos entities, the universe furnace also had chaos spirits, which had some level of sentience and fixed forms. If the monsters Yang Kai encountered in the infinite river were chaos entities, then the one he shoved inside his small universe and took on a form that was similar to the feudal lord after absorbing the open heaven pill's medicinal efficacies was a chaos spirit. Basically, chaos spirits evolved from chaos entities, and the only thing that separated the two was an open heaven pill. Blood Crow informed the human race masters that it was not a big deal if they encountered a chaos entity. As long as they were not disturbed, they would not attack first as they were not sentient. However, he warned them that if they encountered a chaos spirit, then they had to be extremely careful because each one would be capable of gathering a large number of chaos entities as their subordinates, and these chaos entities would preemptively attack anyone who was not the same type of being as them. If the humans did run into a chaos spirit, they would have to either defeat their opponent swiftly, or leave as soon as possible. Yang Kai's hair stood on end when he saw Blood Crow's speculation that there could be Chaos Spirit Kings hidden inside the universe furnace. What was a Chaos Spirit King? Chaos entities who devoured open heaven pills would become Chaos Spirits. Ordinary grade open heaven pills created ordinary Chaos Spirits, whereas the supreme grade open heaven pills created Chaos Spirit King. This was not baseless guesswork either. The universe furnace had surfaced many times throughout history, and even if only 9 supreme-grade open heaven pills were formed each time, it was unlikely that every single one had been taken away by someone from the outside. There would have been extremely lucky chaos entities who managed to absorb and refine supreme-grade open heaven pills. Blood Crow did not know how strong a Chaos Spirit King was as he never came across one. However, when he previously entered the universe furnace in search of opportunities, he sensed an intense battle taking place in the void very far away from him. It was a fight between a Ninth Order master and some other master. At the time, Blood Crow did not pick up on the aura of anyone from the Black Ink clan which he was now familiar with. If the Ninth Order master was not battling against someone from the Black Ink clan, then it was clear what the implications were. If Blood Crow was right about this, the so-called Chaos Spirit King would not be any weaker than a Ninth Order master or a royal lord. They all stood at the apex. Yang Kai felt a little overwhelmed. Although he had already figured out that there was a third great force inside the universe furnace, he never considered the possibility that they would be harder to deal with than he expected. If the humans did not handle the search for opportunities inside the universe furnace well, it could become a calamity instead. The Jade Slip contained other information and reports about the universe furnace world, so Yang Kai read through everything and seared the information into his memory. Then, he destroyed the Jade Slip and asked, "How many people from our side came in?" "I don't know precisely how many as the Supreme Headquarters made all the arrangements," Liao Zhang replied, "but if we're talking about just the Wolf Fang army, around 600 of us came in. Less than 200 of us are 8th Order masters. The rest are in the 7th Order." Yang Kai was startled. 7th Order masters came in as well? However, he soon figured it out. Is it for the ordinary grade open heaven pills? Liao Zhang nodded. Many of these 7th Order masters have not reached their limit yet, but because they have not been cultivating for long, they are still facing bottlenecks despite having enough heritage. They're not here for the supreme grade open heaven pills, but they might be able to become 8th Order masters a lot quicker if they find some of the ordinary grade open heaven pills. Yang Kai more or less understood Mi Jinglun's arrangement. At this point, the humans kept having new high-rank open heaven realm masters added to their ranks because they had 2 open heaven realm cradles, which were the Star Boundary and the Myriad Monsters World. These were all rising stars who benefited from the World Tree clones, so they had a higher starting point. Many of them became 6th Order masters from the get-go. However, even if they were now 7th Order masters and had enough heritage in their small universes, it was hard for them to become 8th Order masters within a short time frame as they had not been cultivating for long. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5735, Sensing Something. Even someone like Feng Ying, an elite among the humans who had been in countless battles on the Black Ink battlefield, had to spend over 2 centuries cultivating in seclusion before she could go from 7th Order to 8th Order Open Heaven realm, so what more need be said about others? Most masters would encounter a bottleneck of their own unless they were extremely fortunate or had exceedingly solid foundations, though the difficulty of breaking through the bottleneck always varied. Once they reached the bottleneck, they could break through it within a century or 2 if they were lucky, but the unlucky ones might even take up to a few millennia if they ever succeeded at all. The best thing to do was to let these 7th Order masters look for the ordinary grade open heaven pills inside the universe furnace. If they could gain some of these opportunities, then the humans would have more 8th Order masters around, which would be a huge boost in future battles against the Black Ink clan or the Chaos Spirit clan. Compared to the supreme grade open heaven pills, it was far easier to find ordinary grade open heaven pills. Apart from the ones Yang Kai seized when the universe furnace emerged, he had also found 2 of them at the mountain range earlier. Based on his earlier observations, there were quite a lot of ordinary grade open heaven pills. The human masters would surely be able to find some unless they were extremely unlucky. This meant that quite a number of the 7th Order masters who came in would soon become 8th Order masters. You mentioned senior brother Xiong earlier. Has he become a 9th Order master? Yang Kai asked. Liao Zhang shook his head. No, so senior brother Xiong came in this time too. Xiong Shan didn't break through to the 9th Order. Yang Kai was a little startled. He thought it would have been fairly easy for Xiong Shan to do so, but from the looks of it now, he was still heavily affected by the previous regression in his order thanks to sacrificing a large chunk of his small universe. Otherwise, with his aptitude and talent, it was unlikely for him to fail to have a breakthrough after so many years of retreat. The supreme grade open heaven pills might just be his only hope. Would ordinary grade open heaven pills be useful for this situation? Xiong Shan had the aptitude to become a 9th Order Open Heaven Realm Master. He was different from the others like Ou Yang Lai and Mi Jing Lun who started off in the 6th Order. He was now stuck at the peak of the 8th Order Open Heaven Realm and could not go beyond this, so it could be considered a bottleneck. Theoretically speaking, an ordinary grade open heaven pill would probably be useful in his situation. In that case, the humans would soon have a new 9th Order master inside the universe furnace. This was thrilling news for the humans and a catastrophe for the Black Ink clan. Yang Kai was caught up in these thoughts of his. Meanwhile, in a different part of the universe furnace world, there was a terrain that appeared to be a dense forest. At a glance, the dense forest was just like a regular one outside with towering trees and a variety of plants, but it did not have the sounds of nature and life. Upon closer inspection, it became clear that this seemingly ordinary forest was entirely made up of shattered Tao essence, just like the infinite river and the mountain range that Yang Kai found. There were a lot of strange sights inside the universe furnace. It had everything that could be found in the outside world, but it also had things that could not be found anywhere else. There was no denying that the space inside the universe furnace was exceedingly mysterious. At this very moment, a heroic-looking figure was sitting cross-legged under a large tree. This human wore a deep red robe that was quite eye-catching. He did not hide his aura, which was that of an 8th Order master at the peak of his realm. He readily allowed his aura to spread in all directions. Anyone who was nearby would instantly sense it. He was none other than Xiong Shan. Usually, Xiong Shan kept a pretty low profile, but he was now purposely announcing his presence because he wanted to attract the Black Ink clan's attention, as well as allow the humans to locate him quickly. He did not keep a high profile because he was full of himself. Instead, it was because he was confident. After cultivating in seclusion for over 1,000 years and failing to break through his bottleneck, Xiong Shan realized that he could not rely on his own efforts alone to become a 9th Order master. That was why he entered the universe furnace as well. The Open Heaven pills could aid him in his efforts to break through into the 9th Order Open Heaven realm, and he was not doing so for his own greed. If he became a 9th Order master, the humans would gain an even more powerful warrior who could deter the enemy. Xiong Shan had already partaken in a fight earlier and his victory was seen in the form of the scattered remains of a chaos entity nearby who was destroyed by his Tao strength. As it was, he was fairly lucky. He ended up here when he entered the universe furnace and ran into a chaos entity who had consumed an ordinary grade open heaven pill right away. Naturally, Xiong wasted no time and effort in killing the chaos entity and taking the ordinary grade open heaven pill for himself. He consumed it at once and began refining it. Moments later, Xiong stood up and held his hands behind his back before letting out a weak sigh. The ordinary grade open heaven pill could not help him with his present condition. Even though he figured as much already, he was still disappointed that he had been proven correct. The real reason why he could not become a Ninth Order Master was the drawbacks left behind when his order fell in the past. No one else knew about this, but he knew full well that his small universe never regained perfection after what happened back then. If he wanted to resolve this, he would have to get a supreme grade open heaven pill. However, there were only a handful of supreme grade open heaven pills and it would not be easy to find one. Either way, all he could do was try, the rest was up to the heavens. With that thought in mind, Xiong turned into a streak of red light and shot out of the dense forest. As he headed off into his distance, his formidable aura spread across the void and became even more prominent. Xiong thought of the supreme grade open heaven pills as something rare and almost ethereal. He did not know where to look for one, but somehow, there would always be lucky ones who would find what they wanted even without specifically looking for it. An intense battle had just ended in another part of the void. The chaotic shattered Tao essence was disrupted by the aftershocks of the battle and space became strange and unpredictable. Two figures stood together. One was a young man dressed in white. He had white hair and bright eyes. The other was a slender woman with delicate features. As the two of them stood together, they gave off the feeling of a well-matched couple. The young man and woman were Yang Xiao and Yang Shui from the suppressing Black Ink Army. When the Universe Furnace projection fully manifested at the suppressing Black Ink Fortress, the Black Ink Clan army charged through the opening in the Primordial Heavens Source Grand Restriction in an attempt to keep the suppressing Black Ink Army occupied, but after a frenzied battle, the Black Ink Clan suffered devastating losses. Even the two royal lords who took the risk to come out had been severely injured by Fu Guang with the help of his dragon bead. One of them nearly died on the spot. The Black Ink Clan had no choice but to retreat, and the 58th Order Masters from the suppressing Black Ink Army who had been chosen to enter the Universe Furnace managed to do so at the very last breath. Ever since the suppressing Black Ink Army took up the responsibility of standing guard at the Primordial Heavens Source Grand Restriction, they did not have any means of contacting the Supreme Headquarters directly. The distance between them was too great, so it was only Yang Kai who could travel back and forth freely, and he had already visited them once due to the innate territory lords sneaking out of the Primordial Heavens Source Grand Restriction. Due to this, Yang Xiao and Yang Shui did not know much about the Universe Furnace, hence, they had no idea that everyone would be separated once they entered. That being said, despite not knowing about this, Yang Xiao did grab Yang Shui's hand before they entered. He was not a naive young boy anymore. After all the years of fighting against the Black Ink Clan, he was no longer the mischievous child he once was. Now, he was able to stand alone and shoulder heavy responsibilities. As a man, he was constantly protective of Yang Shui who was with him all the time. Thus, he instinctively grabbed Yang Shui's hand before entering the Universe Furnace. This was how they were able to stay together upon entering. Unfortunately, they had not been inside long before they ran into a territory lord. The territory lords who entered the Universe Furnace were acquired territory lords, as basically all the innate territory lords who were well and whole had taken part in the plan to create pseudo-royal lords. The only innate territory lords the Black Ink Clan had now were the ones who snuck out from the Primordial Heavens Source Grand Restriction or the ones with heavy wounds from battle. These innate territory lords were severely weakened, so they could not enter the Universe Furnace. Even in a one-on-one fight, both Yang Xiao and Yang Shui could easily go up against an acquired territory lord, so what more when they were up against one together? The territory lord did not even have the chance to escape as the two of them joined forces and harnessed time principles, which turned the territory lord into dust. The two of them came out of the fight completely unscathed. However, Yang Xiao started frowning as he turned and stared into the distance. Yang Shui noticed this and was a little anxious. "Are you hurt?" Yang Xiao shook his head. "No, but... little aunt, I think there's something over there." What is it? They were in the middle of an endless void, and after hearing what Yang Xiao said, Yang Shui was on edge. She felt as if someone was hiding somewhere and spying on them in secret. I don't know, Yang Xiao could not explain it either. He raised his hands and channeled the power of his great sun and moon marks. When I used purifying light earlier, I sensed a vague connection to something over there. These 2 marks are something that adoptive father gave me. Yang Kai had obtained 10 sets of great sun and moon marks, along with a large amount of yellow and blue crystals from chaotic dead territory. He gave them to 10 divine spirits, which enabled them to supply the dozen or so great territory battlefields with purifying light even when he was not present. This eased the awkwardness and pressure Yang Kai felt from being exhausted and stretched too thin. This was why Yang Xiao had the great sun and moon marks from the burning light and serene glimmer. Earlier on, when he was working together with Yang Shui to kill the territory lord, Yang Xiao used purifying light to attack the enemy, and it was this action that led to the 2 marks on his hands sensing something. But, what could possibly interact with the great sun and moon marks inside the universe furnace? Yang Xiao could not figure it out. Yang Kai would not have thought that Yang Xiao would be the first to reap the rewards of him marking 9 supreme grade open heaven pills. It could only be chalked up to a person's luck, which was not something that could be calculated. Yang Shui's eyes brightened at once. Could it be Big Brother? She made this guess because Yang Kai also had the great sun and moon marks, and if both were used, it was normal to sense a mark from the same source. Yang Xiao was shocked as well. It could be. Come. Let's go and take a look. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5736, The Two Yangs Treasure Hunt. Why is there a desert here? An hour later, Yang Shui froze in a daze as she took in the odd scene in front of her. A barren desert had popped up in the middle of the boundless void, a startling sight for any who saw it. The 2 of them quickly surveyed the place and soon realized that it was not a real desert, even though it looked identical to a real one. This seemingly enormous desert was entirely made out of the strange shattered Tao essence. All they saw around them was golden sand that stretched as far as their eyes could see. There was even a fierce wind that blew through the area, and the sand dunes that rose high up to the sky looked majestic. Anyone who saw this sight would immediately notice the peculiarity of the situation, as well as the danger. However, the closer they got, the clearer the reaction was from Yang Xiao's 2 marks. He could tell that they were getting closer to the source of the reaction. Is Big Brother here? Yang Shui frowned. Either way, we'll find out once we look. Yang Xiao replied. Yang Shui nodded, and with a flick of her hand, something flew out and started spinning. It turned into a small temple the size of an ordinary dwelling. The characters Flowing Time were etched on the sign above its main entrance. This was what used to be the Flowing Time Temple that they had inherited from the Star Boundaries Flowing Time Great Emperor. Over the past few millennia, both of their cultivations improved and their understanding of the Tao of Time had long since surpassed that of Flowing Time Great Emperor. However, Flowing Time Great Emperor was still their honored master. Thus, Yang Shui could not bring herself to simply discard the Flowing Time Temple that the Great Emperor left behind. Over the years, the 2 of them exchanged countless military merits to seek out the help of an artifact refining Great Grandmaster from Divine Cauldron Heaven to strengthen and improve the Flowing Time Temple. The Flowing Time Temple was vastly different now when compared to its original state. Although it appeared largely the same, its power was not any weaker than that of Dawn's dawning light warship. Throughout the many years of charging through the various great territory battlefields, Yang Xiao's squad often relied on the Flowing Time Temple to battle against the Black Ink clan masters. This mobile palace artifact had accompanied the 2 of them on their journey of growth and witnessed their rise. There were countless times when they had relied on it to flee for their lives, and to them, it was no longer just an artifact anymore, as it was something that had its own meaning for existence. After summoning the Flowing Time Temple, the 2 of them swiftly entered. Yang Shui waved her hand once more and an hourglass-shaped artifact appeared in her fair hand. It was Infinite Hourglass, an artifact they had also inherited from the Flowing Time Great Emperor. 10,008 grains of flowing time sand were sealed up inside the hourglass, and as the sand trickled down, time principles encased the Flowing Time Temple. This allowed it to become out of phase with normal spacetime and become virtually undetectable. Yang Xiao and Yang Shui remained on high alert as they traveled into the depths of the desert. A few days later, the flowing time temple abruptly stopped as Yang Xiao triggered his great sun and moon marks to quietly sense the surroundings for a moment. He then looked up at the towering sand dune in front of him. It's coming from the inside of that. No matter how one dissected the situation, it was strange to find a sand dune several thousand meters tall in the middle of this unending desert floating in the chaotic void. The moment they arrived, the two of them realized that Yang Kai could not have been the source of the reaction from the great sun and moon marks. If he had been here, he would have sensed their approach a long time ago and would not have stayed hidden. "Let me try," Yang Xiao said softly as he raised his hand. The time Dao strength that permeated out of the infinite hourglass in Yang Shui's hand grew even more concentrated as she became even more fully focused. The void shook, and under the vibrations from the dragon force, a stretch of bright light shot towards the sand dune. The forceful blow centered on the sand dune before shooting out in all directions and stirring up clouds of sand in the process. Meanwhile, the seemingly lifeless desert sprung to life all of a sudden as hundreds of millions of grains of sand swirled in the air to form a giant cloud of several thousand meters tall that was constantly shifting in shape. "What's that?" Yang Xiao and Yang Shui were both terrified. However, Yang Shui's eyes soon lit up as she pointed at a specific spot in the sand dune, an open heaven pill. A multicolored light flickered momentarily amid the billowing sand. It had only shone through for the briefest moment, but Yang Shui still managed to spot the shape of a spirit pill, along with the mysterious aura which emanated from it. The shackles that kept her at the peak of 8th order open heaven realm cultivation trembled ever so slightly just sniffing the aroma coming from it. Yang Xiao had seen the same thing and could not resist laughing with glee. "We've found treasure, little aunt." He never thought they would stumble across an open heaven pill this quickly after entering the universe furnace. He was a pure-blooded dragon, so he did not need an open heaven pill. As long as he kept refining his dragon vein, he would be able to attain the body of a divine dragon. Naturally, this was no easy feat as, after all these years, the dragon clan had only birthed a handful of divine dragons. However, Yang Shui needed the open heaven pill. In the past, Yang Shui had directly ascended to 6th order open heaven realm. At the time, the World Tree clone had only just begun blessing the star boundary and Yang Shui did not benefit much from it. The fact that she directly became a 6th order master was largely credited to her own aptitude. If she had been born in the present era, Yang Shui's aptitude and the blessing from the World Tree would have been enough for her to ascend directly to 7th order. In any case, based on her current situation, reaching the peak of 8th order open heaven realm cultivation was her limit. However, if she could get the help of an open heaven pill from the universe furnace, she could remove the shackles and reach the 9th order. Not only would she be able to reach the pinnacle of martial Dao, but she would also provide a huge boost to the human race's strength. This spirit pill was the only reason why Yang Xiao accompanied Yang Shui into the universe furnace. Technically speaking, Yang Xiao did not qualify to be one of the ones entering the universe furnace. There were over 400 8th order masters in the suppressing Black Ink army and many of them were bound by the shackles which stopped them from rising into a higher realm. However, Fu Guang, who oversaw the suppressing Black Ink fortress, only allowed 50 of them to enter the universe furnace. This meant that a lot of careful thought and discussion went into deciding who could go in. As part of the Dragon Clan, Yang Xiao did not need an open heaven pill, so naturally there was no reason to waste a quota on him. Fu Guang did not express any form of opinion on this either. The 58th Order Masters were decided based on the discussion among the inner circle of masters in the suppressing Black Ink army. Initially, they arranged for Su Yang, Yu Yu Meng, Shan Qing Luo, and Yang Kai's other wives to enter the universe furnace. Without Yang Kai, the human race would not have made it to this day. Furthermore, his wives had slaughtered just as many of the enemy, if not more, so they had every right to enter the universe furnace. However, if Yang Shui was included among them as well, nearly a fifth of all the openings would go to people who were closely related to Yang Kai. The entire suppressing Black Ink army could only afford to allow 50 masters to enter, which meant that it would be quite unfair to the others. In the end, It was Su Yang who said that she and the other wives would not be entering the universe furnace. Instead, Yang Xiao would accompany Yang Shui in the search for opportunities. It would be up to fate to decide whether or not their search would be a success. Yang Xiao and Yang Shui could be considered childhood friends who knew each other extremely well. They had spent thousands of years together and had long since developed the connection that allowed them to be of one heart and mind. When they joined forces, they were able to wield strength that was far greater than that of simply two eighth-order masters combined. Allowing Yang Xiao to accompany Yang Shui was the best way to ensure her safety. After all, she was Yang Kai's only blood-related little sister. How would anyone be able to face Yang Kai if something happened to her inside the universe furnace? Thus, the two Yangs entered the universe furnace just like that. Meanwhile, Zhao Yibai, Zhao Ya, and Shu Yi, who were also with the suppressing Black Ink Army, all had the aptitude to become ninth-order masters on their own, so they did not need to enter the universe furnace in search of opportunities. Before entering, Yang Xiao had secretly made up his mind to do whatever it took to protect Yang Shui and obtain an open heaven pill that would enable her to become a ninth-order master. The only difficult part of this was figuring out how to locate such a valuable treasure. Never would he have imagined it possible for them to locate the precious open heaven pill that countless human race masters desired so easily. At this moment, he was puzzled as to what the relationship was between the open heaven pill created by the universe furnace and the great sun and moon marks that his adoptive father gave him. Why was there a faint connection between them? He could not figure it out and did not have the time to dwell on it either. As he probed into the sand dune, it seemed to stand up like a living creature, and the hundreds of millions of grains of sand were tumbling around in a way that made it look as if the sand dune was attempting to flee. It was a rather comical sight. However, in the very next breath, Yang Xiao could no longer smile. Amid the strange movement of the sand dune, a huge surge of sand rose from the desert surface out of the blue, and soon, a large hand stuck out from the sand. It pressed down hard on the surface and a large silhouette appeared. The silhouette was over 1,000 meters tall. It had the form of a human and the face of a human too, but the enormity of the body made the proportions look uncanny. It was as if a baboon had been enlarged by over a dozen times its size and had a human's head. That was not all. More large hands stuck out from the sand, and soon, two more silhouettes joined the baboon-like figure with a human head. One of the figures looked like a normal human while the other looked like it was from the Black Ink clan. Yang Xiao's expression hardened slightly. Although he could not detect the strength of the three strange creatures and had no idea what these three even were, he had the innately heightened senses of a dragon clan which made it obvious to him that these three were not to be easily messed with. They seemed to be guarding the sand dune that had devoured the open heaven pill and would be attacking anyone who approached without any mercy. Following the appearance of the three chaos spirits, the enormous sea of sand seemed to come to life as well. A whole host of formless chaos entities made up of shattered Tao essence began surging towards the flowing time temple. "Little aunt," Yang Xiao called out. Without saying anything, Yang Shui began unleashing the power of the flowing time temple as it charged towards the three chaos spirits. To defeat an army, one should defeat the leader first. Although the two of them did not know the difference between a chaos entity and a chaos spirit, they could tell that the three chaos spirits were the main obstacle in their attempt to seize the open heaven pill. As long as they got rid of the three of them, everything else would not be an issue, including the sand dune that was several thousand meters tall. The flowing time temple flashed forward and all the chaos entities in its path were knocked away. This was a mobile palace artifact of comparable strength to Dawning Light while its defenses were the best it could possibly be as Yang Xiao and Yang Shui had spent a hefty amount of their military merits on it. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5737, Hui Ji Yu. A fierce battle broke out in the desert. It was so intense that the desert seemed to be on the verge of crumbling apart. Although it was Yang Xiao and Yang Shui's first time dealing with chaos entities and the Chaos Spirit Clan, they were not flustered at all as they had fought countless battles on numerous great territory battlefields for millennia now. At first, they had a harder time as they had not figured out the best way to face off against their opponents, but as time passed, they began to take control of the fight. Pure world force, dragon force, and even ordinary secret techniques and divine abilities had limited effects when it came to injuring these monsters, but when the two of them worked together to unleash pure time principles in the form of time Tao strength, they were able to restrain their opponents. The three chaos spirits with physical forms were as powerful as Eighth Order Masters and Territory Lords, but the chaos entities without physical forms had varying levels of strength. Some were incredibly weak and were instantly exterminated under the rush of time principles, while others were able to put up a struggle for a little while. However, there was a seemingly endless number of chaos entities amid this sea of sand made out of shattered Tao essence. Thankfully, the two had decided from the start that they would be targeting the leaders first to win the battle. One of them had the body of an ancient dragon and an abundance of strength, while the other was at the peak of the Eighth Order Open Heaven realm and naturally possessed power that could not be underestimated. Furthermore, they had cultivated the Tao of time since their youth, and after thousands of years of effort, the Tao strength they wielded when they joined forces to harness time principles far surpassed what was to be expected from someone of their cultivation realm. They expended a fair amount of effort and paid a big price to kill the three chaos spirits, but in the end, all that was left was a sand dune several thousand meters tall that was fleeing deeper into the desert. While Yang Xiao and Yang Shui were busy battling against the Chaos Spirit Clan, Yang Kai and Liao Zheng were traveling together along the Infinite River. After asking about Xiong Shan and hearing that he did not manage to become a Ninth Order Master, Yang Kai found it lamentable. However, this meant that the moment the Black Ink clansmen came across either him or a seasoned Eighth Order Master like Xiong Shan, they would immediately target the two of them. The Black Ink clan would not want to let either one of them gain an opportunity inside the universe furnace which would allow them to become Ninth Order Masters. All of a sudden, Liao Zheng asked, "Senior brother Yang, was a Black Ink clansman spying on us in secret just now?" He recalled the way Yang Kai shot off on a chase immediately after they joined forces to kill the Territory Lord earlier. It meant that Yang Kai had noticed something. Yang Kai nodded, there was one, but they fled soon after realizing that the situation didn't look good for them. I couldn't figure out where they went. By the time he went over to chase that Black Ink clansman down, all that was left was a tiny trace of the enemy's aura. Even Yang Kai had difficulty ascertaining the direction in which the Black Ink clansman had fled amid the endless shattered Tao essence inside the universe furnace, so he had to return without achieving his goal. Had this been the world outside, there was no way Yang Kai would have allowed a Territory Lord to escape from right under his nose when he could use space techniques. Alas, this was a unique environment that greatly increased the difficulty of doing things like searching, tracking, and investigating. Liao Zheng could not help but feel a sense of belated fear when he heard this. He knew that if Yang Kai had not discovered him by coincidence, then the tables would have turned and he would have been the one to suffer the fate of the Territory Lord instead. As they traveled, the two of them remained on the lookout for both open heaven pills and other human race masters. Less than half a day later, Liao Zheng's expression abruptly changed. He took out a communication bead and checked it before exclaiming happily, "Senior brother Yang, there's a Seventh Order Master up ahead." It had to be said that the Supreme Headquarters, or perhaps more specifically Mi Jinglun, had given a lot of thought to this operation and prepared everything in great detail. Naturally, this was also because the humans had ample knowledge regarding the universe furnace world. Mi Jinglun knew that most of the humans would be separated when they entered, so he had them stick to the Infinite River as they traveled. That way, they would be able to encounter other humans regardless of which direction they moved in. Inside the universe furnace, the humans had to team up in groups to defend themselves against the pseudo-royal lords. Furthermore, Mi Jinglun even asked Divine Cauldron Heaven to create communication beads that would allow the human race masters to contact each other and handed these out to all of them. Previously, Liao Zheng had dedicated a thread of his divine sense to the communication bead at all times to see whether there were any communications happening nearby. He also sent out regular messages to the general region, but he never got a response. However, just moments ago, a Seventh Order Master got in touch with him. Since their communication beads made contact, it meant they were fairly close to each other. Yang Kai nodded at once, "Let's go and look for him. Also, tell whoever it is to not enter the river." Even though he did not think that others would be as careless as he was, it was still better to give a warning anyway. There were a lot of chaos entities inside the infinite river, and for the time being, Yang Kai had not encountered any chaos spirits, but it was still dangerous for a seventh-order master to enter the river. Liao Zheng acknowledged his instructions and complied with a flicker of divine sense. The two continued forward for a little while longer, and sure enough, they saw a figure approaching from the distance, a woman. She had not known that Yang Kai would be here as well when she contacted Liao Zheng, so when she saw him, she was visibly excited as she greeted respectfully, "Disciple Chu Lingling, greets Palace Master. You're a disciple of High Heaven Palace?" Yang Kai remarked in surprise. Even though he had never met this Chu Lingling before, she had to have come from High Heaven Palace since she addressed him as Palace Master. Similarly, those who addressed him as Dao Lord came from the Void Dao Temple. High Heaven Palace was now of great renown among the human race. It was comparable to any of the cave heavens or paradises. In fact, within the star boundary, its fame was actually greater than that of all other great forces. This was because Yang Kai was the Palace Master of High Heaven Palace. When the World Tree clone at the star boundary first exhibited the ability to nurture the world, the cave heavens and paradises set up Dao temples and split up the territory among them to gather disciples with good aptitude. High Heaven Palace did not stop this, as Yang Kai knew that the star boundary would be filled with many great talents in the future. High Heaven Palace would not be able to take all of them in, so allowing the cave heavens and paradises to set up Dao temples of their own would ease High Heaven Palace's burden and ensure that the talent of these humans did not go to waste. Thus, when the cave heavens and paradises started dividing up the star boundary among themselves, High Heaven Palace had given its full cooperation. At the time, the humans of the star boundary were pretty open to the other cave heavens and paradises, as they were all the mightiest great forces in the 3,000 worlds. Those who could join them would surely make something of themselves in the future too. However, as Yang Kai's prestige continued to rise over the years, his fame soared and High Heaven Palace became the symbol of the star boundary. If given a choice, the humans born in the star boundary would choose to join High Heaven Palace. Chu Lingling had turned red from the excitement she felt when she met Yang Kai. Her palace master was a legend among the human race, and even though she had been a part of High Heaven Palace for many years, so much so that she was now a seventh-order master, she had never met Yang Kai in person before. She had only seen his statue back at High Heaven Palace. She never thought she would run into him after entering the universe furnace. Liao Zhang was quite amused by this sight. He also possessed peak 8th Order Open Heaven Realm cultivation and was quite famous among the Wolf Fang army, but when compared to Yang Kai, he was nothing but a flicker of light against the dazzling bright moon that was Yang Kai. He could understand what Chu Lingling was feeling, as he had also felt an instinctive sense of respect and awe when he met Yang Kai earlier. This was due to the seeds his seniors had sown deep within him from the moment he started cultivating. "Senior brother Yang asked you a question, Marshal niece Chu." Liao Zheng had to prompt Chu Lingling when she failed to respond after quite some time. That managed to snap Chu Lingling out of her reverie. She blushed and quickly replied, "Yes. I am a disciple of the Hui Jiyu Divine Monarch, and before that, I was taught by the two martial ancestors on Bamboo Peak." Yang Kai nodded. Hui Jiyu, her. Hui Jiyu was the subordinate that Yang Kai had taken under his command at Yin-Yang Cave Heaven's prison star. At the time, Yang Kai had used the strength of the loyalty list to subdue Hui Jiyu, recording his name on the 7th page, so he was one of Yang Kai's earliest subordinates. However, when Yang Kai decided to head off to the Black Ink battlefield, he gave Hui Jiyu his freedom. The moment he stepped onto the Black Ink battlefield, Yang Kai would be caught up in a constant life-and-death war, and he had no idea whether he would make it out alive. If he died, then those whose names were recorded on the loyalty list would die as well, so before he left, he gave them all their freedom. However, even when Yang Kai had these subordinates under his command, he never treated them harshly and was willing to form sincere connections with them. Thus, even though he gave them their freedom, none of them left. As Chen Tianfei said, he did not possess great powers, so he would not be benefiting from leaving Voidland. It was better for him to stay in Voidland. After all, thanks to his relationship with Yang Kai, he would never have to worry about cultivation resources. During the Great Evacuation, Voidland combined with High Heaven Palace, and the people whose names had been recorded on the loyalty list became elders there. Luan Baifeng even formed an elite squad with Su Yang and the others, and they fought hard together in profound nether territory. After thinking about Hui Jiyu, Yang Kai could not help but recall many of his old acquaintances. Throughout the past few millennia, he did return to High Heaven Palace from time to time, but he would always arrive in a flurry and leave in a rush, so he could not stop to meet them. Who knows how many more familiar faces will disappear by the time this calamity is over. As for the two martial ancestors that Chu Lingling mentioned, they were none other than Yang Kai's parents. Although his father and mother did not possess exceptional power, they longed to join the battlefield and hunt down the enemy too, but Hua Qing-sai would never allow that. If anything happened to them because she gave them her permission, she would not be able to face Yang Kai again. Thus, she gave them a new responsibility to keep them occupied. Their task was to teach the new talented disciples who had just begun their cultivation journeys and did not possess particularly noteworthy strength yet. There was more than met the eye to this arrangement, however. These talented disciples would one day become the core pillars of High Heaven Palace, and the fact that Yang Yinfeng and Dong Suzhu had once mentored them at the beginning of their martial Dao meant that regardless of how powerful they became in the future, they would still feel gratitude towards the two of them for teaching them in the past. Yang Kai quietened down his complicated emotions and smiled. Has Hui Jiyu reached the 8th order? Hui Jiyu used to be called a heavenly monarch, but now, Chu Lingling addressed her master as divine monarch, which was a step up. In the 3000 worlds, there was an unspoken rule that only high-rank open heaven realm masters had the right to be called divine monarch. Martial Peak, Chapter 5738, Grey Fog. Master is still in the 7th order open heaven realm, Palace Master, Chu Lingling replied. Yang Kai nodded in understanding. Not all divine monarchs were the same. Since high-rank open heaven realm masters could be addressed as divine monarchs, it applied to both 8th order masters and 7th order masters. Moreover, he also then recalled that Hui Jiyu would not be able to become an 8th order master. The peak of the 7th order open heaven realm was his upper limit. Hui Jiyu had been a 6th order master when Yang Kai took him under his command at the prison star all those years ago. It was unsurprising that he had become a 7th order master since then, as he would not lack the resources for cultivation when he had Void Land and High Heaven Palace's support. Perhaps Hui Jiyu no longer had any goals of his own after reaching the limit of his martial Dao, so he decided to take in a disciple like Chu Lingling. Meanwhile, Chu Lingling was at the peak of 7th order and did have the ability to become an 8th order master. She entered the universe furnace to get an ordinary grade open heaven pill in order to break through sooner rather than later. That way, she would have an even better chance of survival in the coming war. A rising star like Chu Lingling did not need to take the risk of entering the universe furnace if she had not wanted to break through to the 8th order sooner. She, along with other rising stars, could simply carry on focusing on their cultivation, and they would eventually do so. Alas, time waited for no one. The appearance of the universe furnace changed the situation between the human race and the Black Ink clan. The curtain had risen, and devastating battles broke out across all the battlefields in existence. These were building up to the ultimate fight that would determine the fate of these two races, and there was no stopping it this time. Mi Jinglun had realized this, which is why he arranged for many of the 7th order masters to enter the universe furnace. After all, the ordinary grade open heaven pills were fairly readily found, so as long as the masters were not completely down on their luck, they should be able to find a few. Since Chu Lingling was from High Heaven Palace and Hui Gu's disciple, Yang Kai was not stingy with her. He took out a jade bottle and said with a smile, "Your master helped me a lot back then, and you're also a High Heaven Palace disciple. I didn't prepare much, but since it's our first time meeting each other, I'll give this to you." He flicked the bottle and a gentle force made it float over to Chu Lingling. Chu Lingling was a little flustered. She never thought that her palace master would be giving her a gift on their first meeting. She wanted to decline, but Liao Zheng remarked with a smile, "You should not refuse a gift from your elder." Yang Kai's lips twitched. "Elder? Well, so be it. Even though I still look young, I have cultivated for several millennia now, and I'm the palace master of High Heaven Palace too. Elder it is." Chu Ling paused briefly before accepting the jade bottle and bowing in gratitude. Disciple thanks Palace Master for his generous gift. Yang Kai nodded and started moving again. He took the lead and headed in the direction Chu Ling had come from. Chu Ling was about to put the bottle away as it would not be polite for her to check its contents in Yang Kai's presence, but then, she heard a void transmission from him. There are quite a few of them in there. You probably won't need to use all of them. If there are any left, you can give the extras to people who need them. She was startled at first, but a thought soon struck her. She immediately abandoned all attempts at maintaining propriety and checked what was inside the bottle. When she saw that the bottle was filled with spirit pills, she was both shocked and thrilled. Have I just received the very thing that I came into the universe furnace for? Aren't these the ordinary grade open heaven pills that I'm looking for? Did I achieve my goal this easily? Liao Zheng had also spotted what was inside the bottle and could not help but sigh. Senior brother Yang is so efficient. I haven't even gotten a single thing yet while he has already accumulated so much. With luck, this bottle of ordinary grade open heaven pills would be enough to let 2 7th Order Masters reach the 8th Order. As they traveled, they were still on the lookout for other humans, but Yang Kai also shared his experiences in finding these open heaven pills with Liao Zheng and Chu Ling. In reality, it was not difficult to find these open heaven pills. Setting aside the open heaven pills that had not been discovered yet, the ones that had been devoured by the chaos entities could easily be found. If a chaos entity could not merge into the surroundings and hide, it meant that it had consumed an open heaven pill. Also, it would take a lot of time for them to refine and absorb the medicinal efficacies of such a pill. Based on the test that Yang Kai did in his small universe, it would take a chaos entity decades to perhaps even over a century before they could fully absorb the open heaven pill. Therefore, as long as the humans discovered chaos entities who were unable to hide their tracks, they would easily be rewarded with open heaven pills. They did not need to worry about the loss of medicinal efficacies either, as the chaos entities could not refine them in such a short amount of time. Chu Ling immediately let out a regretful expression. Earlier on, she had seen one such chaos entity inside the infinite river, but she had been worried about the peculiarities of the terrain and dared not enter. Thankfully, Yang Kai had her retrace her steps, and soon, they found the chaos entity again. Yang Kai personally caught it and killed it with great ease by flushing it with his Dao strengths before collecting the ordinary grade open heaven pill it had devoured. The trio continued moving forward. Now and then, they would stumble across a fellow human, and the group slowly grew bigger. The humans kept making their way along the infinite river and using the communication beads to get in touch with each other. The ones they met up with included both 7th Order and 8th Order Masters. Once there were 11 of them in total, Yang Kai, who was in the lead, stopped and turned around before saying, "Here's where we'll part, everyone." The group of 10 was made up of 3 8th Order Masters and 7 7th Order Masters. There were 2 reasons for this unusual ratio. Firstly, when compared to the 8th Order Masters, a larger number of 7th Order Masters had entered the universe furnace. Secondly, Mi Jinglun had also instructed the 7th Order Masters to search for the infinite river the moment they entered, and meet up with other allies. Their only goal was to team up, then find ordinary grade open heaven pills before breaking through to the 8th Order inside the universe furnace. Supreme grade open heaven pills were extremely rare. Not only would they be hard to find, but even if one was found, they might have to fight the Black Ink clan and the Chaos Spirit clan for it, so not many would succeed. However, if more 7th Order Masters became 8th Order Masters, it would be a great boost to the human race's overall combat power. The 8th Order Masters naturally hoped to gain their own opportunities, but some of them would still need to lend a hand in protecting the 7th Order Masters. A group of 10 would be strong enough to protect themselves. Even if they ran into a pseudo-royal lord, they would still be able to put up a fight, so Yang Kai no longer had to stay with them. It was time for him to hunt down a supreme grade open heaven pill. Liao Zheng and the 2 other 8th Order Masters knew what Yang Kai wanted to do, so they simply nodded, and Liao Zheng said, "Go ahead, senior brother. Over the past few days, we have found many ordinary grade open heaven pills. The 3 of us will help them find a safe place and let a few of them break through first before we decide what to do next." Yang Kai nodded. That would be for the best. Remember that safety is your top priority. Nothing matters more than survival. He cupped his fists in a final goodbye, and with a flicker of space principles, his figure disappeared. Once Yang Kai left, Liao Zhang and the others had a quick discussion. The 3 Eighth Order Masters stuck around to protect the 7th Order Masters as they led them away from the infinite river and into the endless void. It would be challenging to find a safe place inside the universe furnace as their abilities to inspect and search the area around them were greatly restrained. No one knew when they might suddenly encounter a fearsome opponent. Fortunately, the world inside the universe furnace was expansive, and as long as one was not severely unlucky, it would be all right to simply select a place at random. Once they settled down somewhere, they took out the ordinary grade open heaven pills and divided them among the 7th Order Masters who needed them. The 7th Order Masters quickly consumed the pills and refined them. Soon, the aura of one of the 7th Order Masters began to surge. It was a sign of an upcoming breakthrough. Everyone gasped at the sight. Although the ordinary grade open heaven pills could not help a cultivator break through their innate limits the way the supreme grade open heaven pills could, they were still able to provide great help to cultivators facing a bottleneck. From the looks of it now, there would be many new 8th Order Masters once this trip inside the universe furnace was over. At the same time, Yang Kai was traveling through the void. Now and then, he would check for a reaction with his great sun and moon marks or check for any activity from the communication bead he had with him. Liao Zhang had given him this communication bead. It was what the human masters used to reach each other in this space. It made it easier for the humans to confirm where they were, and in a moment of crisis, they could ask for help. Right now, Yang Kai was concerned as to how he was supposed to find the supreme grade open heaven pills. Even though he left a mark on all 9 of them, he still had not found any of them yet. He had no idea where they were either, so he had to rely on luck. The information he received from Liao Zhang also made it clear to him that the situation inside the universe furnace was a lot more complex and perplexing than he thought. The Chaos Spirit clan could be found inside here, and there was also the possibility of Chaos Spirit Kings existing. Furthermore, the supreme grade open heaven pills were useful to the Black Ink clan as well. This possibility had never even occurred to Yang Kai in the past. Thus, the number of obstacles between the human race and the supreme grade open heaven pills was far above what Yang Kai originally suspected. He was moving through the void when all of a sudden, he spotted something that looked like a grey fog in front of him. He broke out in cold sweat and had a look of belated fear. It was just a tiny layer of grey fog that was about the size of a table. Yang Kai had nearly gone straight into it just now, but luckily, he noticed it in the nick of time and halted. He used his divine sense to inspect the grey fog, and to his surprise, he found that there were worlds inside the tiny blanket of grey fog. It was no mere grey fog, after all, it was a sea of stars that was many, many times smaller than normal. It looked like a tiny layer of grey fog, but it was treacherous on the inside. If anyone entered it by accident, he or she would be entering the sea of stars. That person could even lose their sense of direction and be stuck in there with no means of coming back out. Why would this be inside the universe furnace? However, upon thinking back now, Yang Kai realized that this was not the only time he encountered something like this. He had seen countless grey fog patches of varying sizes along the way but had not paid any attention to them earlier. He only realized how mysterious they were after studying this one more carefully now. The universe furnace is proving to be even more mystifying than I thought. Yang Kai quietened down his heavily thumping heart. As he stared at the grey fog in front of him, he could not help but consider a new possibility. If I'm able to take this away, refine it, and summon it whenever I'm up against the enemy, wouldn't it mean that I'd be invincible? Even a Black Ink John spirit god would probably have a hard time escaping from the grey fog if he was stuck inside it, let alone a royal lord. However, the moment Yang Kai began checking out this possibility, he gave up on his unrealistic idea. He could not take it with him. It appeared to be just a tiny patch of grey fog, but it was actually colossal in volume. To take it away meant taking away an entire sea of stars, and the massive strength needed to accomplish that was not something he, an 8th Order Master, had. Not even a 9th Order Master could do it. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5739, Third Brother. Even after racking his brains for quite some time, Yang Kai could not think of a way to get it done. He had no choice but to give up now, as it was more important for him to find a supreme-grade open heaven pill. He could always return to this place and think of something later on if he had a chance. However, before he started moving, he sensed something. He immediately turned around and stared into the distance, and at the very next breath, he melded into the void with space principles. A few breaths later, he saw a silhouette rushing towards him from a distance. The silhouette's black ink strength was prominent, clearly a territory lord. However, Yang Kai could tell that this was an acquired territory lord, as his aura was not as strong as that of an innate territory lord. Yang Kai could easily kill an acquired territory lord without even breaking a sweat. He was waiting in secret to make his move when he noticed what the territory lord was holding. After just a moment of hesitation, Yang Kai decided against attacking. Instead, he hid his tracks and chose to tail the territory lord in secret. It was because he saw the territory lord holding a miniature black ink nest, and from the latter's urgency, it was clear that he was heading somewhere in a rush. Thanks to Yang Kai's many years of experience battling against the Black Ink clan, he knew that miniature black ink nests were used for communication purposes. Back when he was hovering outside the no-return pass and the innate territory lords were hunting him down, they used these miniature black ink nests to pass messages between them. However, that was not its only usage. If the Black Ink clan were willing to pump in the resources, they could turn these into real black ink nests. Seeing as how the territory lord was grasping the black ink nest and was moving in such a hurry, it was easy enough for Yang Kai to deduce that the territory lord must have made contact with his clansmen and was using the black ink nest to lead him to them. Instead of killing just one, it was better to root out a bunch of them. That was why Yang Kai decided against killing this territory lord immediately. Nevertheless, Yang Kai was taken aback by the fact that the communicative function of the miniature black ink nests was still working inside the universe furnace. However, the territory lord whom he and Liao Zheng joined forces to kill did not have a miniature black ink nest with him. After giving it some thought, Yang Kai realized the reason behind this. The Black Ink clan knew nothing about the universe furnace, so naturally, they would not be as well prepared as the humans. This territory lord must have had a black ink nest with him because he was already carrying it around even when he was outside. Even though Yang Kai was following the territory lord the whole time, the latter had no idea that a human master was tailing him. This was not only due to their power differential, but also due to the mysteriousness of the Tao of space. As long as Yang Kai wanted to stay hidden, a mere acquired territory lord would not be able to detect his presence from afar. Yang Kai patiently tailed the territory lord as he pondered the possibilities of the situation taking place up ahead. Since the territory lord was quite likely moving in a rush after being called upon by his clansmen, it was either because they had found something valuable or they had gotten into a fight with the humans. Either one of these outcomes would still be bad for the humans. By following in secret, Yang Kai might be able to alleviate any dangers that had befallen his allies. Yang Kai thought that the situation would only be one of the two possibilities, so when he suddenly felt a weak reaction from his great sun and moon marks, he was thunderstruck. There was no denying that Yang Kai was deeply frustrated and upset over the fact that he had witnessed the creation of the 9 supreme-grade open heaven pills and had let them slip away from him. Even though he left a mark on each of them, he did not get a reaction after all this time and was beginning to suspect that the mark he left might have dissipated. Thus, he was stunned that he felt a reaction now by coincidence. Yang Kai suppressed his exhilaration and carefully tried to sense the direction where the reaction came from. To his surprise, it was exactly where the territory lord was heading. Did that mean the Black Ink clan discovered a supreme-grade open heaven pill? Who were they fighting against to get it then? Yang Kai had no clue now, but he would find out once he arrived at the battle. After traveling for an unknown amount of distance, Yang Kai suddenly sensed the commotion of a battle up ahead, and it was a pretty intense one. Yang Kai peered into the distance and was a little startled by what he saw. A large part of the void was filled with countless jellyfish-like creatures of various sizes. They were giving off multicolored light that glimmered and dimmed. Even the solidity of their forms kept changing, which made them look incredibly peculiar. Several figures were scattered among the sea of jellyfish. Some were fighting while others were moving around. There was no sign of any humans. There was someone from the monster race though. Its 5-meter-long body shifted like flowing water. The leopard print on its skin was bright as it dazzled like reflected light. At times its form became phantom-like and at other times it solidified. It was fighting against several territory lords alone. Thunder Shadow Great Emperor. Yang Kai never thought he would encounter his monster self here. Truth be told, when his monster self was in the process of becoming a great emperor back at the Myriad Monsters world, Yang Kai had specifically gone over to stand guard, but after that, he did not pay any attention to his monster self. That was because he did not have to. As a great emperor, his monster self would have an easy, untroubled cultivation journey in the Myriad Monsters world. From the looks of it now, that was precisely the case. His monster self's cultivation had reached the peak of the 8th Order Monster Emperor realm. Although his monster self was using primal art to train its monster core, just like Fang Tianci, it was still held back by Yang Kai, its true body's limit. Right now, his monster self's cultivation was also at the limit and he could not break through any further. When Fang Tianci was breaking through to the open heaven realm, he possessed everything needed to become a 7th Order Master, but in the end, he ended up as a 6th Order Master. This was because of Yang Kai. Regardless of whether it was his human self or his monster self, their cultivation journey was hindered by the limits of their true body. When the universe furnace surfaced, Yang Kai knew that both his human self and his monster self would enter and reunite with him. Throughout this journey, apart from trying to track down the supreme-grade open heaven pills, Yang Kai had also been on the lookout for signs of his monster self and human self. He had checked with Liao Zhang and the others too, but they had not seen anything either. However, he did not expect to reunite with his monster self under such coincidental circumstances. It was an unexpected pleasant surprise. That being said, the biggest and most joyous surprise was the supreme-grade open heaven pill among the sea of jellyfish. At the very center of the huge swarm of jellyfish, there was one that was at least 10 times bigger than the others and it had clearly devoured a supreme-grade open heaven pill which could be spotted when its body turned translucent. Yang Kai did not know whether it was his monster self or the Black Ink clan who first discovered this supreme-grade open heaven pill, but it was evident that the fight had been going on for quite a while now. The Black Ink clansmen could use the miniature Black Ink nest to call for aid, but Yang Kai's monster self was alone in a one-against-many fight. Despite being alone, Thunder Shadow Great Emperor was not as disadvantaged as one might imagine. After all, in most cases, the average monster race master was stronger than the average human race master in the same equivalent realm. Monster race masters had far stronger bodies than normal, and Thunder Shadow himself had an innate divine ability that allowed him to blend with the shadows and become hard to detect. By striking suddenly and powerfully now and then, Yang Kai's monster self was just barely able to put up a fight against the group of territory lords. Naturally, this was also thanks to where the fight was taking place. The large swarm of jellyfish were most likely chaos entities, but they were different from all other chaos entities that Yang Kai had previously seen. Although they were still shifting through various states of solidness, they had fixed forms. They seemed harmless enough, but when someone else came into contact with them, the person would be hit with a peculiar attack. Yang Kai saw a territory lord flying backwards after being hit by Thunder Shadow. When the territory lord crashed into a jellyfish, it looked as if he lost his consciousness as his eyes glazed over. It was a while before he regained mental clarity. Thunder Shadow was about to kill the territory lord when another one came over and rescued his clansmen. The jellyfish-like chaos entities were rather strange. It was clear that Thunder Shadow had suffered at their hands too, so when it fought against the territory lords, it tried its best to avoid touching them. However, that meant it could not move around as freely as normal. It appeared to be a fiery battle between the two sides, but in reality, both were seriously hindered by the environment and could not go all out. The territory lord that rushed over had clearly received instructions beforehand. Upon arrival, he did not show himself at once and instead quietly crept towards the battlefield in an attempt to sneak up on Thunder Shadow and deal a deadly blow. Unfortunately, he was not particularly skilled at keeping himself hidden. He had just approached the battlefield and had not even entered the swarm of jellyfish when Thunder Shadow noticed him with a single glance. The territory lord was a decisive one, however, and since he had been discovered, he openly revealed himself, but before he could do anything to Thunder Shadow, a territory lord stared behind him in shock and quickly shouted, "Watch out." All at once, the territory lord felt an overwhelming sense of danger envelop him, as if death itself had come. Before he could recover from his shock, he felt a sharp pain. He looked down and saw a spear sticking out of his chest, with world force surging along it. Someone snuck up on me and attacked me. What was most terrifying was the fact that he had not noticed anything until the moment the person attacked. Who snuck up on me? All sorts of thoughts flashed across the territory lord's mind as he tried to escape, but he could not move. Space seemed to have solidified around him, and world force flowed strongly from the spear in his chest. A violent force erupted and the territory lord's body exploded into a shower of blooded scraps. The black ink strength that escaped from his body leapt out like a wild horse and swiftly turned into a black ink cloud. An invisible force surged as the black ink cloud dispersed to reveal a young man with a spear in hand. He flicked his blood-soaked spear and smirked. "Young Kai." The territory lords gasped as the color drained out of their faces. They were petrified and no words could describe the bitterness they felt right now. How could things end well for them after running into the killing star here? Most importantly, why did they run into him? The universe furnace was vast and boundless, and they had relied on the miniature black ink nests to gather themselves here. No humans had been drawn over even after their lengthy fight with this monster racemaster, yet now, it was young Kai of all people who showed up. Thunder Shadow was also taken aback. The lightning in its mouth flashed and crackled, but soon, a human-looking grin broke out across his face. He thought that this would turn out to be a fierce struggle between two evenly matched opponents and was fully prepared to flee if things took a turn for the worse. A supreme-grade open heaven pill was valuable, but his life was even more so. He knew what his priorities were. What he did not expect was young Kai's arrival. The situation was a lot simpler now. It was going to claim the lives of these territory lords and collect the supreme-grade open heaven pill. Thunder Shadow was assured and confident, while the territory lords were panicking. As for the jellyfish-like chaos entities, they just shifted about, giving off their multicolored glow which illuminated the different reactions from both parties. Outside the battlefield, young Kai lifted his spear and pointed it in front of him as his voice boomed all across the place. "How dare you bully third brother? You must have a death wish." Marshall Peak, Chapter 5740, Supreme Grade Open Heaven Pill. Young Kai's abrupt appearance immediately changed the tides. Initially, the territory lords had the advantage in the fight due to their numbers, but they no longer had any inclination to continue fighting. All they could think of was to flee as far away as possible, lest they met their doom. Nevertheless, they knew that it was futile for them to try and escape from young Kai alone, considering his mastery over the Tao of space. Thus, after a brief moment of panic, the territory lords quickly began grouping up to form a battle formation to try and put up a fight. However, forming a battle formation in this bizarre environment was no easy feat all along. They failed to form a battle formation due to the inconvenience of being surrounded by the swarm of jellyfish. One false move and they would end up making contact with the strange jellyfish, and when that happened, even masters as powerful as these territory lords would fall into a brief trance. Previously, they gave up on the idea of forming a battle formation and simply used their numbers advantage to gang up on Thunder Shadow, who would not have managed to hold out this long if that had not been the case. They now wanted to attempt forming a battle formation again, but it was too late. Thunder Shadow, who deduced what they were trying to do, immediately charged at the nearest territory lord. His strong, agile form morphed into a ball of lightning and in the blink of an eye, appeared in front of the territory lord. The lightning shrouded him and his opponent so the others could not see what was happening. All they could tell was that powerful forces clashed within the lightning. Meanwhile, young Kai had already raised his spear and charged into the swarm of jellyfish. As soon as he entered the battlefield, he realized what was strange about these chaos entities. They kept oscillating between varying physical states. At times, they could be seen, but at others, they were invisible. They also kept moving around as if a swarm of jellyfish was floating along in the vastness of the universe furnace world, though there was no telling where their final destination was. When they disappeared, even Yang Kai could not detect them. This resulted in him bumping into a jellyfish the moment he entered the battlefield, stopping him in his tracks. Light flickered and the jellyfish reappeared. Yang Kai could sense a wave of jumbled, chaotic energy coming from the jellyfish, aimed straight at his soul. It finally dawned on Yang Kai as to why the territory lord who made contact with one of these jellyfish-like chaos entity ended up in a dazed, trance-like state. If the attack landed, the target's soul would be hit by that strange energy, and it would indeed be hard to retain full control of one's senses after taking such an unexpected hit. A few of these attacks in rapid succession could very well damage one's soul. These jellyfish-like chaos entities possessed an innate form of energy that allowed them to attack their opponent's soul. This special characteristic of theirs hindered the territory lords and Thunder Shadow's ability to fight, and from the looks of it, everyone in the battle had found out through first-hand experience. When one of the nearby territory lords noticed what was happening, he grinned happily and charged straight at Yang Kai. Even if they formed a battle formation, they might still fail to hold their own against the human's killing star, but now that Yang Kai had accidentally allowed the jellyfish to attack his soul, it was a rare and precious chance for them to land an attack. However, the moment the territory lord reached Yang Kai, he realized something was amiss. Even though Yang Kai was standing stiffly as if he was in a trance, his eyes were bright and shrewd. It did not look as if he had lost consciousness at all. By the time the territory lord noticed this, it was too late. He was a decisive individual, so immediately shoved both his hands forward and black ink strength gushed out like a wave crashing onto the shore. Yang Kai snorted and pierced through the attack with his spear. His azure dragon spear turned into countless spear shadows before condensing into one again. Black ink strength collapsed and dispersed, while the territory groaned as his body flew backwards, black blood spurting out of a hole in his shoulder. His expression was one of someone who just had a narrow brush with death. A silhouette appeared in the territory lord's hazy peripheral vision. He looked up and was horrified as he saw Yang Kai pull back his fist. The territory lord reacted in haste and crossed his arms in front of him. The moment Yang Kai's fist made contact though, a surge of unstoppable force sent the territory lord flying backwards once more as his arms fell to the side to reveal the gaping hole in his chest. Yang Kai was only a step away from becoming a divine dragon, so a mere acquired territory lord could not withstand even such a simple attack from him. The territory lord landed on a visible jellyfish-like chaos entity and the light faded from his eyes as the attack that battered his soul made things worse for his heavily wounded body. Yang Kai raised his hand once more and hurled the azure dragon spear out, piercing right through the territory lord who was currently dazed. The territory lord's aura instantly swelled up before fading away entirely. It had only been 3 breaths of time since the fight between Yang Kai and the territory lord began, but now the other territory lords were trembling with fear as they witnessed how easily Yang Kai had killed one of them. The azure dragon spear flew back to Yang Kai and he grabbed it before turning to Thunder Shadow, who was still fighting against his opponent, and snapped, "Why didn't you warn me that these chaos entities can attack the soul, third brother?" Thunder Shadow growled and ignored Yang Kai. "As if you needed a warning. These jellyfish could hinder everyone else, but Yang Kai, who had the protection of the soul-warming lotus, could pay them no mind. If his soul was attacked, the soul-warming lotus would protect him." The territory lord assumed that it had been his best chance to strike because Yang Kai had fallen into a trance, but in reality, he was only delivering himself into the hands of the enemy. Also, third brother? What the hell is that? An inexplicable sense of irritation washed over Thunder Shadow and his attacks became even more ruthless. The lightning that surrounded him and his opponent became even brighter as cries of agony and ferocious growls rang out. 5 territory lords had gathered here to gang up on Thunder Shadow, with a 6th nearly joining them before Yang Kai killed him. Now that Yang Kai had killed the 2nd territory lord and Thunder Shadow had pinned one down on his own, there were only 3 territory lords left. While Yang Kai was dealing with the other territory lord, these 3 territory lords managed to gather together and join their auras to form the simplest 3 fortunes formation. Despite having successfully formed a battle formation, they did not feel any more assured about their chances. Yang Kai had killed a pseudo-royal lord before, and during his time outside the no-return pass, he had regularly fought against 4 innate territory lords who formed the Four Symbols formation. Thus, if the territory lords wanted to have a fighting chance against Yang Kai, they had to be in at least a Four Symbols formation, and that also hinged on Yang Kai not employing his strange technique that could injure souls. If he did, then a Four Symbols formation would be useless as well. Since Yang Kai was inside the universe furnace, he was not going to use an artifact like the soul-rending thorn, as doing so would harm him in the process and have lingering detrimental effects on him. That being said, a Three Fortunes formation was not sufficient for these territory lords to put up a fight against him, so he had no worries in the first place. The 3 territory lords were quick-witted enough. Once they formed the battle formation, they immediately tried to escape, as one of them roared, "Spare our lives, Yang Kai, and the open heaven pill is yours." Yang Kai snorted, reached his hand out in their direction, and made a grabbing motion. With a flicker of space principles, he grasped something unseen and coolly remarked, "Do you think you can negotiate with me?" As soon as he said those words, the 3 territory lords stiffened and froze in place against their will. It was not due to the space secret technique, however, but rather because they were surrounded by the jellyfish-like chaos entities. The undetectable chaos entities had now revealed themselves and were attacking the souls of all 3 territory lords who came into contact with them. The territory lords instantly became dazed and disoriented. Yang Kai caught the jellyfish-like chaos entities with his space secret technique and teleported them into the territory lord's path. These chaos entities could not do much physical damage, but their attacks on the soul were nearly impossible to avoid, so he made good use of them. Yang Kai slowly strolled over to the 3 territory lords, brushing away a few of the jellyfish-like chaos entities that appeared in his path with his bare hands. The territory lords struggled hard against the relentless attacks on their souls. Sometimes, they were able to gain clarity, but it would only be for a brief moment before they fell into a daze again. It looked as if the chaos entities had rooted them to the spot. All 3 of them were now sitting ducks. When Yang Kai got close to them, he raised his hands. World force surged forward as he targeted all 3 and easily reaped their lives. At the same time, the giant ball of lightning suddenly dissipated and Thunder Shadow walked out. Though he was wounded, his presence was just as strong and domineering as ever. There was a tattered body lying behind him though, looking like it had been torn apart by a hurricane. Although Thunder Shadow was stronger than these acquired territory lords, he did not have a soul-warming lotus to protect his soul. Thus, he still had to put in some effort to kill one head-on in this field of jellyfish. Yang Kai turned to Thunder Shadow and grinned. There was no need for him to say anything. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of the largest chaos entity. This chaos entity was many times bigger than its fellows, though it was uncertain whether it was naturally bigger in the first place or because it devoured an open heaven pill. The supreme-grade open heaven pill only peeked through and gave off a multicolored light when the chaos entity's form became translucent. There's no telling what might happen if this takes too long. We'll do it together. Yang Kai shouted and immediately harnessed his Dao strengths before blasting them at the jellyfish-like chaos entity. Thunder Shadow bounded over and started harnessing his own Dao strength as well. Under their combined attacks, the enormous jellyfish-like chaos entity instantly started shrinking, as if it had met its mortal enemy. It seemed to have an instinctive urge to flee from danger, but Yang Kai had used space principles to keep it locked in place. It could not move or leave, but its physical state started changing even more rapidly, and the invisible attack on the soul was shooting out in all directions. Surprisingly, it was able to attack at a distance. As for the swarm of smaller jellyfish-like chaos entities, they were also visibly affected. Their bodies were releasing chaotic energy which soon covered the surrounding void. Thunder Shadow was affected by this as its Dao strength would cut off now and then. Upon noticing this, Yang Kai had to channel his spiritual energy to protect Thunder Shadow, which saved him from a possible crisis. Under the constant flow of Dao strengths, the jellyfish-like chaos entity that devoured the supreme-grade open heaven pill kept shrinking until it completely disappeared. Yang Kai reached out and took the spirit pill that was giving off a multicolored glow. He now had a supreme-grade open heaven pill, one which would allow him to break through his limits and become a ninth-order open heaven realm master. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5741, Another Path. The universe furnace produced many ordinary grade open heaven pills, but only 9 supreme grade open heaven pills were created. Yang Kai had left a mark on all 9 supreme grade open heaven pills in advance, and by using his great sun and moon marks, he could sense where these pills were once they were within a certain distance from him. Thus, he figured that as long as he was not completely down on his luck, he should be able to make this a fruitful trip, though he could not be certain how many supreme grade open heaven pills he would ultimately get. Nevertheless, he did not expect it to be this easy for him to get the first supreme grade open heaven pill. All he had done was tail a territory lord in secret, and not only did he get one of the pills, but he even reunited with his monster self. All he needed now was to reunite with his human self as well. Once all 3 of them were together, they would even have a fighting chance against a pseudo-royal lord. Inside the universe furnace, the only ones who posed a threat to Yang Kai were the pseudo-royal lords and the chaos spirit kings. The latter was more powerful than the former as their strength was equivalent to that of a true royal lord or Ninth Order masters. However, the humans did not know for certain whether chaos spirit kings existed, as the information they had came from Bloodcrow, and it was only a guess of his. Either way, Yang Kai now had 2 goals to accomplish inside the universe furnace. The first was to carry on searching for supreme grade open heaven pills, and the second was to find his human self. He next quietened down and studied the item in his hand. The spirit pill had an extraordinary appearance. The multicolored light glowed freely, but the Tao currents were subdued. It's a valuable treasure, all right. It deserves its reputation as the most precious opportunity. Even though Yang Kai had witnessed the birth of the supreme grade open heaven pills, he could not move at the time and could not use his powers freely either, so he did not know much about these pills. They had scattered into the distance the moment they were created, and Yang Kai's hopes of getting an early advantage had been dashed. Thunder Shadow was also studying it carefully out of curiosity. Yang Kai's thoughtful expression was reflected in Thunder Shadow's amber eyes, and the latter reminded worriedly, "This isn't something to be eaten. It needs to be absorbed into the small universe and refined." He was afraid that Yang Kai did not know how it worked, and it would be hugely ironic if Yang Kai ended up swallowing the spirit pill just like that. According to information provided by Bloodcrow, the open heaven pills created inside the universe furnace differed from the ones humans made. The latter was created to mimic the former, as the humans had studied the medicinal efficacies and found a way to create open heaven pills after countless years of trials and experimentations. However, at the end of the day, the open heaven pills created by the human race were still completely different from the ones created by the universe furnace. The open heaven pills made by the humans were consumed and refined. It would then provide a boost to the heritage of an open heaven realm master's small universe. That was not the case for the ones from the universe furnace. Those needed to be absorbed into the small universe, and the cultivators would need to rely on the strength of their small universe to refine them. Yang Kai was now at the peak of his martial Tao, and his small universe was wrapped inside an invisible layer of shackles that made it impossible to grow any bigger. However, with the help of the spirit pill in his hand right now, those shackles would disappear and his small universe could continue expanding again. As one's small universe grew larger, one's heritage would also increase. This was the right way to use the innate open heaven pills from the universe furnace, and this was why the pill could help an open heaven realm master break through their natural limits. Yang Kai had already read about these things from the jade slip Liao Zheng had given him earlier, so he knew better than to make a reckless attempt. Then again, does it work on you? Thunder Shadow asked. Yang Kai sighed, I don't think so. Although he had not refined the open heaven pill, he had a feeling that it would not do him any good. Even if he did absorb it into his small universe, it would not be able to help him reach the Ninth Order. Despite holding this open heaven pill in his hand, the barrier around his small universe did not react at all. If the spirit pill did work on him, then this invisible layer would show some kind of reaction in response to the spirit pill's aura. Perhaps this had something to do with the disadvantages of the open heaven realm method and the 3 selves source reconstitution art that Wu Kuang gave him. The open heaven realm method was flawed, but the martial ancestors were not to blame for this. They had relied on the world tree to gain enlightenment about the open heaven realm method before teaching it to the rest of the human race, which allowed the humans to have a fighting chance against the monster race and the Black Ink clan all those years ago. The humans of today would not exist in the same way if it had not been for Kang and the other martial ancestors. Nevertheless, the martial ancestors failed to achieve full enlightenment of the martial Tao, as there was one part that was hidden inside the universe furnace from then, making it impossible to comprehend outside. A supreme-grade open heaven pill was able to make up for the imperfections of the open heaven realm method and complete one's martial Tao, which allowed a cultivator to break through their limits. However, the three selves source reconstitution art that Wu Kuang taught Yang Kai was a result of Shi's many years of hard work and effort in his attempts to comprehend the limitations of the open heaven realm method. Out of the 10 martial ancestors, Shi's ability to formulate secret arts and techniques was the best. If it had not been for that, the sinister, heaven-defying ability of heaven-devouring battle law would not exist. He was the one who came up with the three selves source reconstitution art to deal with the imperfections of the open heaven realm method. Thus, once Yang Kai chose this path of cultivation, his martial Tao had been set and it differed from those that cultivated strictly using the open heaven realm method. Thus, the supreme-grade open heaven pill, which was able to complete the martial Tao of the open heaven realm method, was meaningless to him. Once Yang Kai realized this, he did not know whether to laugh or cry. He wondered if this meant that Wu Kuang had screwed him over. If Yang Kai had not cultivated the three selves source reconstitution art and created his human self and monster self, then he would have been able to become a ninth order master by simply looking for a safe place to absorb and refine this spirit pill he had with him now. Once that happened, his heritage would be enough for him to march through the universe furnace world without a care in the world. Neither pseudo-royal lords nor chaos spirit kings would pose any threat to him. Yet now, despite having such a treasure with him, he could not do anything with it. That being said, Yang Kai knew he had chosen this path himself. At the time, this path was fraught with risks as no one had ever walked it before, but it still represented hope, so he had unhesitantly stepped onto it. No one knew when the universe furnace would surface again, and the human race greatly needed ninth order masters to secure their future. Yang Kai was stuck at the peak of the 8th order open heaven realm and could not break through his limits. Since there was a possible solution, he had to try it. Wu Kuang had meant well. No one could be blamed for this situation. It was simply one of life's cruel jokes. Who would have thought that the universe furnace would show up at such a crucial point in time and that Yang Kai would obtain a supreme-grade open heaven pill so easily? Yang Kai sighed and took out an exquisite wooden box. He stored the supreme-grade open heaven pill inside and placed several restrictions to keep it sealed up before carefully putting the box away. After taking a look around and seeing the swarm of jellyfish-like chaos entities who seemed to be floating along unconsciously, Yang Kai used space principles to gather them. Thunder Shadow quietly took this all in as it wondered who the unlucky person would be. He had also gotten a taste of these jellyfish-like chaos entities' strange attack, and although it was not life-threatening, anyone who touched them would suffer a shock to their soul. Most importantly, it was impossible to detect them when they took on an invisible state. This made them an excellent weapon to use in stealth attacks or ambushes. Yang Kai had already been tempted to take the grey fog that contained a sea of stars inside it when he ran into it earlier, but he could not accomplish that. Now that he ran into these jellyfish-like chaos entities, he was not going to hesitate. While collecting them, he began chatting with Thunder Shadow. Although Thunder Shadow was Yang Kai's monster self, due to the uniqueness of the three selves source reconstitution art, Thunder Shadow was also an independent living being. After all, he had been born and had grown up just like any ordinary living being. He possessed all the same qualities as an independent existence had. However, as Thunder Shadow's strength grew, the seal that Yang Kai had placed on the various pieces of information inside Thunder Shadow's soul slowly lifted, so he knew who he was and what his mission in life was. This was the same with Fang Tianci, who had long since become an 8th Order Master, which meant that he knew everything he had to know. Right now, Fang Tianci was most likely searching for the whereabouts of Yang Kai and Thunder Shadow. In all honesty, Yang Kai did find it a little strange to be chatting with his monster self, but if he treated Thunder Shadow as an independent entity, then it no longer seemed odd. After becoming a great emperor, Thunder Shadow spent a long time cultivating inside the myriad monsters world. That was because it was the only place that allowed it to use his great emperor status to rapidly grow stronger. This continued until nearly 1,000 years ago when his strength hit a ceiling. That was when he came out and joined the battlefield to hunt down enemies. Thunder Shadow spoke mostly of Qin Shui as he undoubtedly cared a lot about the Seventh Order Master who took care of him when he first started out. He was constantly worried that something bad might happen to her during the imminent battle ahead of them. All of a sudden, Thunder Shadow asked, "Will the Three Selves Source Reconstitution Art really allow you to become a Ninth Order Open Heaven Realm Master?" Yang Kai continued gathering the jellyfish-like chaos entities as he said, "No one has ever tried before, so there's no way of knowing whether it will work. However, since it's something that should arrived back then, it should work." Wu Kuang's no saint, Thunder Shadow scoffed. Yang Kai chuckled, "My trust isn't in Wu Kuang or Shi, but in myself. Even though the three selves have not reunited yet, I can sense that once that happens, it will indeed help me break through my limits. When the time comes, your human self and I will disappear for good. You are me. I am you. Combining as one doesn't mean you will disappear. You're wrong. You're you, your human self is you, and I am you, but you are not us. There's a difference." Yang Kai frowned. Thunder Shadow licked his paw. "What's the matter? Is this topic too heavy for you? Relax. The human self and I both understand our purpose. When the time comes, neither one of us will hesitate." "That's not it." Yang Kai sighed and closed the portal to his small universe. "These jellyfish-like chaos entities are polluting my small universe. I can't keep too many of them." He had been too simplistic in his thinking. After entering his small universe, the jellyfish-like chaos entities kept giving off that strange energy to attack his soul. Yang Kai had the soul-warming lotus for protection, so he was not afraid of that. However, these chaos entities were made up of chaotic shattered Tao essence, and to Yang Kai, that was like the harshest of impurities that could contaminate his small universe. If he took in too many of these chaos entities, it would affect his small universe's stability. He had been thinking about taking in all of the jellyfish-like chaos entities here, but from the looks of it now, he had to reluctantly abandon that idea. Yang Kai thus only kept the small number that he was still able to suppress, as it would be hard for him to carry on doing so if he took in any more of them. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5742, Evolution. Yang Kai made his way through the void with a tiny, feline monster racemaster sitting on his shoulder. It was his monster self, Thunder Shadow. Alas, Yang Kai found it lamentable that he could not take too many of the jellyfish-like chaos entities with him and left the place with Thunder Shadow in tow. Initially, he wanted Thunder Shadow to give him a ride as he wanted to experience what it was like to have a mount, but Thunder Shadow refused. Instead, he shrunk down and took a seat on Yang Kai's shoulder. Yang Kai could not do anything about it. Since Thunder Shadow did not want to do it, Yang Kai was not going to force him. At this moment, Yang Kai looked somewhat hesitant as he held a miniature black ink nest in his hand. This was one of his spoils after killing all those territory lords. After inspecting it up close, he confirmed that it was a low-rank black ink nest. However, since it could be used to communicate inside the universe furnace, it meant that there had to be a mid-rank black ink nest somewhere inside this space to use as a hub for the Black Ink Clan's communications. Otherwise, the Black Ink Clan would not have been able to use the Black Ink nest space to communicate. Now that Yang Kai had this small black ink nest with him, he could use it to spy on the Black Ink Clan and glean some useful information. The only thing he had to worry about was if the Black Ink Clan realized something and sealed the Black Ink nest space with him inside. If that happened, his soul would also be trapped and he would not be able to escape. He had experienced this once before, but fortunately for him, he had been protected by the soul-warming lotus. At that time, he managed to kill and injure quite a number of territory lords and Black Ink disciples with soul-rending thorns. That was what eventually forced the Black Ink Clan to undo the seal, which allowed him to escape. At the time, Yang Kai was still part of the Great Evolution Army, so the situation was not quite the same. He was inside the universe furnace now, and if his soul did get sealed up, it would hinder him from accomplishing his goals in this place. After mulling it over for a short while, Yang Kai sighed and crushed the miniature black ink nest. He was certain that the Black Ink clan would have their guard up against the possibility of someone spying on them. If he did enter the Black Ink nest with his soul, he might end up falling into their trap. Just to be safe, it was better for him to avoid stirring up any possible trouble. Just then, the void began to rumble and shake. Yang Kai immediately halted and took in the surroundings with his senses. Thunder Shadow, who was sitting on Yang Kai's shoulder, also turned solemn as he said quietly, "The first evolution is happening." Evolution was the word used to describe the change that would happen with the chaotic shattered Tao essence inside the universe furnace. Such changes would happen a total of 9 times, and once all 9 were complete, the environment inside the universe furnace would become vastly different. It was also the signal that the search for opportunities inside the universe furnace was about to come to an end. Blood Crow was the one who provided the humans with this information. He had first-hand experience from the previous time the universe furnace emerged, and although he did not get a supreme-grade open heaven pill and was not a part of any major fights back then, he did manage to come back out of the universe furnace alive. Furthermore, thanks to what he found, he easily broke through and reached the 8th Order Open Heaven realm. The jade slip that Liao Zheng gave Yang Kai not only mentioned the different grades of open heaven pills and the existence of the chaos entities, but it also included information about the changes and evolutions that happened within the universe furnace. The universe furnace was filled with shattered Tao essences, and anyone who entered would immediately sense that. Due to the effects of these shattered Tao essences, the environment inside the universe furnace was similarly chaotic and disorganized. Even time and space were both less defined in this space, allowing for a large number of chaos entities to be born. It was possible that an environment like this would not affect the Black Ink clan much. Their bodies were made up of Mo's creation force and they did not cultivate the Grand Tao. However, the environment did affect the human race masters greatly, especially concerning their Tao strengths. In the outside world, Tao strengths filled every single corner of the universe. Open Heaven Realm masters could harness their own Tao strengths to resonate with the universe's Grand Tao, which allowed them to channel part of that strength. However, inside the universe furnace, the Grand Tao was shattered and Tao essence was chaotic, so there was nothing they could use to enhance their own attacks. Only the humans' physical strength and the world force inside their small universes were not affected. Yang Kai's body, with his dragon vein, was not affected by him being inside the universe furnace, and his ability to use the world force from his small universe was not affected either. However, when trying to manipulate local space principles or time principles, their effects would be weaker here. That being said, this did not affect the human masters too much as they relied mainly on their own power when engaged in battle. Nevertheless, they were still weakened to a certain extent. However, the environment inside the universe furnace was not static. Each time the universe furnace showed up, the world inside would undergo 9 rounds of Grand Tao evolution. Blood Crow had no clue as to why this happened or why 9 times instead of 8 or 7, but either way, that was what happened. As a result of each evolution, the shattered Tao essence that filled the universe furnace would slowly become more refined, and after all 9 times, the shattered Tao essence would have changed into a complete and structured Tao essence. This change had a direct and significant impact on the universe furnace world. Upon entering the universe furnace, everyone felt that the world inside was vast and boundless, but that was mainly due to the haziness in the dimensions of time and space. If one was unable to define the structure they were inside, it was impossible to determine its size or scope. However, as the shattered Tao essence gradually became more and more refined, the space would also become more clearly defined. When it came to this space, the disorder of the universe furnace before would slowly morph into one that could be defined and measured through the continuous rounds of evolution. And this was only the shallowest of the changes that happened. Blood Crow said that during his last foray into the universe furnace, after 9 rounds of evolution, the universe furnace started feeling as if it was a real great territory, and countless universe worlds popped up inside at some point. Every one of the universe worlds had been filled with the aura of new life. He could not figure out where those universe worlds came from and could only speculate that they were a result of the rounds of evolution. This was how the environment inside the universe furnace was changed by the evolution of the Grand Tao. For both the humans and the Black Ink clan who came in, this change greatly affected them. The universe furnace world was currently boundless and never-ending. Even though many masters from the two races had entered, it was not that easy to encounter anyone else, be it an ally or an enemy. Most of the time, they would brush past others without even knowing about it despite being fairly near to each other. However, with each round of evolution, the shattered Tao essence slowly became more refined, and the environment inside the universe furnace world would grow clearer. Blood Crow even suspected that the universe furnace world that emerged after all 9 rounds of evolution was the true nature of the universe furnace world, and everything that had been visible before that could simply be an illusion. It was as if the real environment had been shrouded by a layer of fog. Both the human race and the Black Ink clan sent many of their masters into the universe furnace, with some 7 million or so Black Ink clansmen entering from the entrance in the barren territory alone. With so many living beings inside a single great territory, the chances of running into each other increased manifold. Thus, inside the universe furnace, it was rare to have a major fight break out during the early evolutions. Most of the time, it would simply be one-on-one fights, or perhaps skirmishes between small groups. However, as the evolutions continued, the space inside the universe furnace world slowly became more defined and the seemingly boundless area would become a lot more crowded. There was no way of discerning the pattern of evolution. No one knew when the next evolution would happen, but whenever it did, there were clear signs. Right now, Yang Kai was standing still as he took in the changes to the environment and found that the information had been accurate. The shattered Tao essence that made up the universe furnace world had become ever so slightly more refined. It was not a significant change, but it had indeed changed. Why would there be an evolution of Tao essence inside the universe furnace? Yang Kai had pondered this question when he first received the information from Liao Zheng, but he could not think of a reason why, so he decided to wait until he experienced the evolution for himself to see whether he could learn anything from it. Alas, he was just as clueless as before. In just a few moments, the rumbling stopped. The evolution had started abruptly, and it stopped just as quickly. Yang Kai tried to use his divine sense to scout around him and realized that it was a little better now. He could inspect a greater radius around him, though it was still far less than the maximum he could perceive outside. The shattered Tao essence inside the universe furnace was still a great hindrance to his ability to search and inspect from a distance. I sense murderous intent. Thunder Shadow suddenly growled. He crouched defensively on Yang Kai's shoulder as lightning began to spark across his skin. Yang Kai was startled. He nearly wondered whether Thunder Shadow had made a mistake when he abruptly sensed a powerful aura approaching him from behind. Just as Yang Kai noticed the newcomer, the latter noticed him as well and sent his aura forward. Upon realizing that it was Yang Kai, the newcomer was shocked and elated as he roared, "Hand over the open heaven pill, Yang Kai." As soon as Yang Kai heard what was said, he figured out what was going on. It was clear that the territory lords who were fighting against Thunder Shadow had called for reinforcements, but this one had arrived too late. The territory lords were dead and Yang Kai had the open heaven pill. Thus, this master from the Black Ink clan followed the traces left behind and chased Yang Kai and Thunder Shadow down. Yang Kai did waste some time collecting the jellyfish-like chaos entities after all. The newcomer was a pseudo-royal lord, otherwise, he would not have been as overbearing as he was when he realized it was Yang Kai. The moment the pseudo-royal lord's aura shot towards Yang Kai, the latter was able to figure out how strong his opponent was. After swiftly gauging both their powers, Yang Kai immediately came to a conclusion. He could not defeat this one. Yang Kai had crossed paths with pseudo-royal lords many times. Even though he managed to slaughter Di Wu in the Divine Spirit ancestral land, he only did so thanks to many favorable conditions and advantages of the terrain they fought on, so it was hard for him to repeat that feat. Previously, when he was outside the no-return pass, Mo Na Yi had managed to hunt him down until he had nowhere to hide. Thus, Yang Kai knew full well the power differential between him and a pseudo-royal lord. He did have Thunder Shadow with him now, but he knew a fight would only result in unnecessary loss. Therefore, Yang Kai swiftly decided to flee as he began manipulating space principles. While the shattered Tao essence around him did affect his use of space principles, it also interfered with divine sense, so he did not need to travel nearly as far to escape the perception of a pseudo-royal lord. In this way, the suppression from the environment affected all of them equally. Yang Kai even felt leisurely enough to still be in awe at his monster self, Thunder Shadow. He knew that in terms of strength, he was a lot stronger than his monster self, but Thunder Shadow had sensed the murderous intent before Yang Kai noticed the pseudo-royal lord's presence. Is it because of how innately sensitive those from monster race are? Marshall Peak, Chapter 5743, Evade Him. Since the birth of the vast universe, there have been three important eras in history. The primordial era where the divine spirits ruled over everything under the heavens, the early ancient era where the monster race trod the lands freely, and the late ancient era where the human race rose to dominance. Each era had thousands upon thousands of wonderful chapters, and each one represented the favorite of the heavenly way at the time. As a race that represented an era, each of them had their unique characteristics. For the monster race, their biggest advantage was their strong physical bodies, keen perception, and diverse clans. Thunder Shadow was the monster self created by Yang Kai using the Three Selves Source reconstitution art, but since birth, he had been living in myriad monster world, filled with ancient aura. He grew up in an environment where they obeyed the law of the jungle. Furthermore, he cultivated the monster race's primal art, which could be said to be no different from the great monsters of the early ancient era. The only difference was the era they lived in. Thunder Shadow was actually very strong, otherwise, he would not be able to fight against so many territory lords alone. Only, Yang Kai's true body was just so strong that his light covered the sharpness of his claws. It was only through innate keen perception that Thunder Shadow was able to alert Yang Kai before the latter noticed anything unusual. A pseudo-royal lord was chasing them, and since the two of them were not his opponent, they had no choice but to leave first. However, just as Yang Kai was about to make his escape using his space principles, he suddenly changed his mind, though he still activated his space principles, shifting the void slightly around him. Seeing this, the pseudo-royal lord who was chasing after him panicked and slammed a palm out at Yang Kai's location from afar, not caring whether or not he could even stop the latter with this blow. There was no way for him to not panic. After all, he received news from several territory lords telling him that they had discovered an open heaven pill, but a monster race leopard was keeping them at bay, making it difficult for them to get their hands on it. The leopard was strong, and he also heard that it seemed to be one of monster race's great emperors from the myriad monster world called Thunder Shadow. This was not because the Black Ink clan had a strong intelligence network, but mainly because Thunder Shadow had been baring his fangs too fiercely since descending the mountain and had even killed several territory lords. Thus, his existence was recorded by the top members of the Black Ink clan. The pseudo-royal lord was always looking over the no-return pass, and even though he was usually engrossed with fighting against Mo Nae for power, for many years, he had not made much progress. As he could not gain the royal lord's attention, he could only check for more information around the place and return to report. Coincidentally, this pseudo-royal lord was the third pseudo-royal lord of the Black Ink clan, Meng Qiu. The first pseudo-royal lord to be created by the Black Ink clan was Di Wu, who was killed by Yang Kai at the Divine Spirit Ancestral Land. The second was Mo Nae, and Meng Qiu was the third. Compared with Di Wu's vigor and Mo Nae's intellect, the third pseudo-royal lord remained obscure. Without even mentioning the humans, even the Black Ink clan knew very little about his existence despite him being active for over 1,000 years, which made him depressed. That was the reason why Meng Qiu had been wanting to do something big, something to promote himself and to establish his position. The best he could hope for was to trample Mo Nae under his foot. Unfortunately, the royal lord never gave him a chance, and before he even had the time to show his strengths, the universe furnace came into existence. Due to the large outpour of innate territory lords from the primordial heavens source Grand Restriction, who brought many high-rank Black Ink nests with them, the Black Ink clan now had more than enough resources to create more pseudo-royal lords. Thus, the royal lord decisively gathered all the veteran innate territory lords who were in good condition to create a large batch of pseudo-royal lords. Originally, Meng Qiu and Mo Nae were the only pseudo-royal lords, so he only needed to focus on Mo Na Yi in their battle of wits and courage. Even if he was largely unknown, Meng Qiu was still the left or right arm of the royal lord, but with the increase in their pseudo-royal lords, his presence became insignificant. So, when he received a message from several territory lords that an open heaven pill was discovered, he rushed over without delay. That open heaven pill was the greatest opportunity for the humans. As long as he could get it and destroy it, then he could prevent the humans from gaining another Ninth Order Master. Such a great feat would be enough to make him stand out among all of the pseudo-royal lords. However, when Meng Qiu arrived, he discovered that the territory lords had all been killed. All that was left behind was a large amount of black ink strength from their deaths. Furthermore, the rumored open heaven pill was nowhere to be found. Following the faint traces left behind, Meng Qiu pursued the culprits until he happened upon Yang Kai. There was also a small black leopard crouching on Yang Kai's shoulder. Instantly, Meng Qiu realized that Yang Kai must undoubtedly be the one who killed those territory lords, and the missing open heaven pill must have fallen into his hands. Meng Qiu was overjoyed. Snatching an open heaven pill was a great enough achievement as it was, but if he could take advantage of this situation to cull Yang Kai, then his position in the Black Ink clan would definitely rise beyond Mo Na Yi's. When that time came, he would stand under Mo alone and above all his other clansmen. After all, Mo Na Yi had been fighting with Yang Kai for so many years but still failed to deal with him. Instead, the Black Ink clan suffered a lot from that struggle. They had lost not only resources but also many masters along the way. If Meng Qiu could kill Yang Kai, then would that not be proof enough that he was superior to Mo Na Yi? But soon, Meng Qiu remembered that killing Yang Kai was no easy task. This human was indeed not as strong as he was, but he was proficient in the Tao of space and unparalleled when it came to escaping. Even a royal lord could do nothing to Yang Kai if the latter was determined to flee. If he were to run away here, then where was he supposed to go to look for him? In a panic, Meng Qiu threw out a palm from afar. Space principles surged, turning the local space upside down, but the instant when Yang Kai's body was about to disappear, the palm came down just in time. Yang Kai sprayed out a mist of blood from his mouth and turned over to glare at Meng Qiu, who had attacked him from behind with hatred in his eyes. Space principles surged once more, with his figure blurred. Meng Qiu shouted anxiously, "Coward! Don't run!" But it was to no avail. He could only watch as Yang Kai disappeared without a trace. He instantly felt chagrined beyond words, realizing he had acted too hastily. If he had known this would happen, he would have snuck over quietly and taken Yang Kai down in one swoop instead of announcing his presence. However, for a pseudo-royal lord like him who had to rely on the Black Ink clan's source fusion technique, it was impossible to perfectly control his own power, meaning his aura could not be hidden and stealth was not an option. The auras of pseudo-royal lords like him were always on in a striking display wherever they went, just like fireflies in the night. He searched everywhere by instinct to try and find Yang Kai, but soon, Meng Qiu was taken aback for a moment before rushing in a certain direction. He was actually able to find Yang Kai's location. This time, his target's instantaneous movement did not take him too far away. Meng Qiu had no idea whether it was due to the hit he managed to land earlier or because of this special environment, but no matter what the reason was, this situation was favorable to him. In that direction, Yang Kai wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and focused on flying forward. On his shoulder, Thunder Shadow watched him with narrowed eyes and curiously asked, "You're not this pathetic, are you? What are you trying to do?" He had clearly caught on to some clues. If Yang Kai truly intended to leave just now, then there was no way he would have allowed Meng Qiu's palm to hit him. In other words, the current situation was all part of Yang Kai's plans. "You and I are of one mind, so why don't you give it a guess?" Yang Kai laughed. Thunder Shadow curled its lips, "I can't be bothered. What's more, you should understand that though I am born from a part of your soul, reborn as your monster self, my living environment and experiences since young have been very different from yours, so my character and temperament are different from yours, the true body." Yang Kai nodded lightly. "Naturally, I know that, but fundamentally, you still originated from me, so you should be able to guess what I'm thinking. Don't be lazy to use your head just because you're born a monster." Thunder Shadow snorted and said after a moment, "Are you baiting him?" Yang Kai nodded and his expression turned serious. To compete with the humans for the Universe Furnace's opportunity, the Black Ink clan have created many pseudo-royal lords. We would be safe even if we were to face a pseudo-royal lord, but if we shook him off, he would surely go find others instead, and they may not be able to deal with him. So, if I can lead him around, it will at least stop him from starting trouble with someone else instead. Thunder Shadow nodded. The Black Ink clan have indeed spent a lot of their resources. Currently, the innate territory lords outside have all been recalled to the no-return pass, most likely for the creation of pseudo-royal lords. Yang Kai sighed. Many innate territory lords have also come out from the primordial heavens source grand restriction, which gives the Black Ink clan the confidence to make such a gamble. Those innate territory lords are all injured and would not be of great use to them for the time being, but as long as they recuperate for 100 to 200 years, then they should be back to peak condition. After a pause, Yang Kai turned his head to look at the pseudo-royal lord who was chasing after him. This guy should not be a newly created pseudo-royal lord. If I'm not mistaken, he should be the one who was hiding in the no-return pass all this time. Even though a pseudo-royal lord was unable to exert the full power of a royal lord, as long as they lived for long enough, they could slowly gain more control over their strength, allowing them to display more of it. The palm from just now was very close in strength to what Mo Nae could display, so this was clearly not a new pseudo-royal lord. Combine that with the warning signs he felt outside of the no-return pass, it was not surprising for Yang Kai to have such a guess. On his shoulder, Thunder Shadow intertwined his aura closely with Yang Kai's so that he could help the latter save some energy as he used space principles to move. It was only because Thunder Shadow was Yang Kai's monster self that they could act in concert in such a way. Anyone else would not be able to achieve such a seamless blending of auras. Behind them, Meng Qiu was chasing after the pair without pause, constantly closing the distance with Yang Kai using his superior strength and speed. However, every time he reached a certain limit, Yang Kai would disappear with instantaneous movement, appearing at the edge of Meng Qiu's perception, and the loop would continue. If Mo Nae was here, with his intelligence, he would surely have noticed something by now, but Meng Qiu was far worse in comparison to Mo Nae when it came to wits, so not only was he not alerted to Yang Kai's plans, he became enraged instead and was even more determined to kill Yang Kai. Though one could say that Meng Qiu could not best Mo Nae in terms of wisdom, one could also say that his understanding of Yang Kai was far inferior. Thus, Meng Qiu was consumed by his emotions, so the feeling of closing the distance repeatedly only to see Yang Kai slip away was extremely irritating. The pair continued their chase through the void with Yang Kai probing around in all directions at every moment. For him, his intentions were not only to keep this pseudo-royal lord on his tail to prevent him causing trouble to his allies. His true goal was to find someone who could help him turn the situation around so he could kill his pursuer. Facing such a pseudo-royal lord, Yang Kai and Thunder Shadow were not his opponents even if they combined their strength, but as long as they could find 3 more 8th Order Masters to form a 5 elements formation, then it would be enough to contend with Meng Qiu. Martial Peak, Chapter 5744, Forced to Fight. The Universe Furnace world had just experienced its first evolution, but the chaotic and disorderly shattered Tao essence had only slightly improved. This place was still vast and boundless, so wanting to find a helping hand in this sort of environment was going to be difficult. The other worry was that Yang Kai might even attract other enemies before finding the help he needed. Based on the information he obtained from Liao Zheng and the others, as many as 20 pseudo-royal lords had appeared on the various battlefields, and there could be more of them. If he were to draw in another pseudo-royal lord, then even Yang Kai would have trouble dealing with them. There was no helping it, however. He could only keep going with his plan. As he fled, Yang Kai silently opened the portal of his small universe and quickly closed it again, his figure sweeping quickly away without any pause. He seemed to have done nothing, but Thunder Shadow, who was resting on his shoulder, was keenly aware of the moment his small universe's portal was opened. He even saw Yang Kai release a jellyfish chaos entity that he had brought in earlier. The moment the chaos entity was released, it just happened to be in an illusory state and was imperceptible to one's eyes or divine sense, which was within Yang Kai's calculations. Naturally, Thunder Shadow understood what Yang Kai was trying to do, and he could not help but divert some of his attention to the rear alongside Yang Kai. The next moment, when Meng Qiu crossed the point where the trap was set, the chaos entity revealed itself, and as its body bloomed with multicolored light, Meng Qiu naturally hit the jellyfish straight on. This was a great shock to Meng Qiu. Even though he believed himself to be far stronger than Yang Kai, he did not dare to be careless in the face of this powerful enemy who had been causing endless troubles for the Black Ink clan for thousands of years. During the chase, he was constantly on guard to avoid being taken by surprise. Yet, he never thought that he would still fall for Yang Kai's trickery. The jellyfish-like chaos entity was one that Meng Qiu had previously discovered at the place where the territory lords died. Back then, he did not examine them carefully, but now that he touched one, he could sense a shapeless chaotic energy emanating from it that attacked his soul. Meng Qiu was taken aback for a moment and threw his palm out by instinct, slapping away the chaos entity in his face. Up ahead, Thunder Shadow, who had seen everything clearly, licked its paws leisurely and commented, "Useful, but not very much so." Yang Kai nodded. This jellyfish chaos entity emitted a very special type of energy that disrupted one's soul, and this shock was clearly powerful enough to affect the pseudo-royal lord behind them. Unfortunately, the disturbance the jellyfish caused was minimal. It was very different compared to the territory lords before, who fell into a complete daze after being hit by these chaos entities. This wasn't too much of a surprise though, as the enemy was a pseudo-royal lord. In terms of cultivation alone, Meng Qiu was no different from a Ninth Order master or true royal lord, thus, he had great resistance towards such attacks. As such, Yang Kai's plan to use his collected jellyfish chaos entities in the fight against this pseudo-royal lord fell apart. At the very most, these chaos entities could only hinder a pseudo-royal lord a little rather than become a key to attaining victory. In fact, regarding this pseudo-royal lord, Yang Kai had at least two ways to deal with him on his own. However, the price he would have to pay was too great and not considered cost-effective in this situation. He would be better off trying to seek help instead. Going round and round in this universe furnace world where time and space were extremely blurred, three figures swiftly moved, one chasing and two fleeing, though only one of the latter was actually exerting any effort. It was not known just how much distance they had traversed or how long it had been. As long as Yang Kai wanted to run, then Meng Qiu would not be able to catch him, but he also could not bear to give up on a big fish like Yang Kai, so he had no choice but to soldier on. After such an extended chase, Meng Qiu had also garnered some clues from his enemy's actions. He may not be as smart as Mo Na Yi, but he was still a pseudo-royal lord who had a lot of information about Yang Kai and knew his habits and thoughts well. How could he not understand that Yang Kai was purposefully leading him on after so long? Even though Meng Qiu knew his enemy's intentions, he could not understand what Yang Kai's ultimate plan was, or if he had a hidden plot beneath the chase, which made him feel slightly uneasy. As the chase continued, the void suddenly shook. The second evolution was emerging. Just like the first evolution, it came fast and left just as quickly, but after this evolution, the shattered Tao essence became a little bit more perfect. For Yang Kai, who had great proficiency in the Tao of time and Tao of space, he had a greater intuition for such details compared to others. However, the helpers he needed were still nowhere to be found. Until a certain moment, Yang Kai suddenly sensed the fallout of a fierce battle up ahead. Instantly, he had a bad premonition and focused his senses. Then, his brow furrowed. After the second evolution, the interference he experienced during his search was less than before, and very soon, Yang Kai realized that the fight up ahead was between masters from the Black Ink clan and the human race. About 4 or 5 different auras were coming from the human side, all of them in the 8th order. To be able to converge in one place so quickly was obviously thanks to physical contact they must have shared while entering the universe furnace. However, the Black Ink clansmen opposing had one particularly powerful aura among them. Though it contained the strength of a royal lord, it was clearly a pseudo-royal lord. The worst situation Yang Kai expected had happened. What Yang Kai hoped most to encounter along this chase was a group of at least 3 8th Order masters traveling together. That way, alongside him and Thunder Shadow, they could easily form the 5 elements formation and teach the pseudo-royal lord behind him some proper respect. With a 5 elements formation, ordinary 8th Order Masters could just about put up an even fight against a pseudo-royal lord, but with Yang Kai serving as the core, the chances of defeating a pseudo-royal lord were relatively high. As for killing such an opponent, that would be a bit difficult. If they were to encounter 1 or 2 straggling 8th Orders, Yang Kai could accept that too. However, this was what he feared most, where there were enough 8th Order Masters to fight a pseudo-royal lord, but they were already encumbered. Seeing this and understanding the situation, Yang Kai swiftly turned away, hoping to lure his pursuer away with him. The pursuing pseudo-royal lord's divine sense was not the least bit weaker than Yang Kai's, so if Yang Kai could detect the movements there, then Meng Qiu who was chasing him should have felt them too. However, Meng Qiu only hesitated for a moment before turning around and continuing to chase Yang Kai. Yang Kai breathed a sigh of relief when he noticed this. This pseudo-royal lord did not seem very smart. If it were Mo Na Yi, he would not be coming after him. While thinking so, Meng Qiu suddenly paused. Clearly, he had also realized something before shouting at Yang Kai from afar, "I'll go kill those humans first before coming back to deal with you." After venting his anger, Meng Qiu immediately turned around and swept towards where the battle was taking place earlier. However, before he could get far, the space in front of him rippled and a figure emerged from within, holding a long spear that he immediately thrust out. Meng Qiu seemed to have anticipated that this would happen and let out a hearty laugh before swinging his fist out to meet Yang Kai in battle. The spear shadow was smashed and Yang Kai was sent flying back while Meng Qiu only staggered slightly, clearly showing the disparity in their strengths. In the void, ripples were constantly forming at Yang Kai's back. He had activated space principles to try and diffuse the force of the counterattack and was soon able to stabilize himself with a sigh. Even though this pseudo-royal lord was not very bright, he was not a complete fool either if he knew to threaten him with the lives of 8th Order Masters. If Yang Kai let him leave and join together with that other pseudo-royal lord up ahead, then the 8th Order Masters there would certainly be in danger. So, as soon as Meng Qiu said those words, the chase was over, and the initiative also fell into Meng Qiu's hands. This was the reason why Yang Kai was worried about encountering this situation, because once he did, he would be forced to fight with this pseudo-royal lord. This was not the outcome he wanted. Meng Qiu was extremely pleased that he had successfully forced Yang Kai to face him head-on and even felt that his idea was simply a stroke of genius. He studied Yang Kai carefully and his eyes shone as if he were looking at his own war trophy. He had seen Yang Kai before, but even though he had been stationed in the no-return pass all along, both times that Yang Kai caused a stir, Meng Qiu had been an innate territory lord, so having to face a killing star like Yang Kai was not something he had confidence in back then. The number of innate territory lords who fell to Yang Kai's spear was in the hundreds. However, Meng Qiu was now a pseudo-royal lord and naturally in a different state of mind. Despite having taken the initiative, Meng Qiu did not let down his guard and turned to look around him. "Where is that leopard? Tell it to come out. I won't be accused of bullying you." Meng Qiu did not see any trace of the leopard that was sitting on Yang Kai's shoulder previously, which made him suspicious. He had no idea what Yang Kai was planning by hiding it away. Even though he was a pseudo-royal lord, it would not be very pleasant for him if he were attacked from behind by a monster racemaster during a critical moment. Yang Kai curled his lip and kept silent. He just raised his spear in front of him and silently gathered his strength. Dealing with this pseudo-royal lord could mean losing his life at any moment, so he could not be sloppy. Meng Qiu lost patience and sneered, "Good. No matter what plans you try to use, this will be your burial ground today. Remember, the one who killed you is the Black Ink clan's Meng Qiu." As soon as those words were said, he turned into a stream of dark light and lunged at Yang Kai. The next instant, 2 figures clashed with each other, and in the moment after that, a figure was sent flying out, golden blood pouring out of his mouth. It was Yang Kai. Even though he had fought with 2 pseudo-royal lords before and even killed Di Wu, it was Yang Kai's first time fighting a pseudo-royal lord head-on at full strength. During his fight with Di Wu, the latter had been suppressed by the divine spirit ancestral land. Yang Kai had favorable conditions and an advantageous position, so that fight did not count for much. As for the fight against Mo Na Yi, Most of it was just Yang Kai running away from him. During that time, Yang Kai was not in peak condition since he had fought against many innate territory lords earlier, so he no longer had the capital to battle Mo Na Yi. This was Yang Kai's first real clash with a pseudo-royal lord without either side having a distinct advantage. Meng Qiu was very strong, and even though he could not exert his full strength, he was still not an enemy Yang Kai could fight against freely. Still, Yang Kai steadied himself and went all out. Compared to Yang Kai's cautious seriousness, Meng Qiu was sighing in his heart. The killing star whose name resounded through the humans and Black Ink clan was truly not comparable to ordinary 8th Order masters. Before meeting Yang Kai, Meng Qiu had met 3 other 8th Order masters. One of them was alone, whereas the other 2 moved in a pair. However, faced with a pseudo-royal lord like him, it did not matter whether they were 1 or 2, there was simply no way for them to fight back and they died swiftly under his palm. However, Yang Kai was able to block his blow head-on. Rather than find this ridiculous, Meng Qiu felt it was only right for Yang Kai to be this strong. If he wasn't, it would have been impossible for Yang Kai to make the Black Ink clan suffer so many losses. Martial Peak, Chapter 5745, Split Up. 2 auras were clashing incessantly in the void, their fierce battle unceasing. Yang Kai was dripping blood with every step, his condition relatively miserable. Ultimately, he was not the opponent of a pseudo-royal lord in a head-on fight, especially with this one called Meng Qiu who was a veteran pseudo-royal lord. Meng Qiu was not one of those who had just become a pseudo-royal lord and had yet to familiarize themselves with their own strength. The strength that he was able to exert in battle was almost the same as Mo Na Yi. Every collision resulted in Yang Kai being suppressed, forced to back away again and again, his body drifting like a lone wooden boat on a stormy ocean, in danger of capsizing at any moment. Both time principles and space principles were pushed to the extreme, and Dao strengths wrapped around his spear as it danced freely. Yang Kai anticipated the enemy's moves through time principles while moving his body with space principles, but he was still just barely able to hold on. The illusory phantom of a golden dragon coiled around Yang Kai's body as fine dragon scales could be seen appearing on the surface of his skin. Against such a powerful enemy that he had no hopes of contending with, the dragon scales could offset a lot of the damage. The dragon coiling around his body was not used to counter Meng Qiu's attacks, but rather to circulate the power of Yang Kai's dragon vein in order to defend himself and heal his injuries. Even Yang Kai's towering evergreen divine manifestation, which had been unused for years, was brought out. The giant tree dropped its branches, enveloping Yang Kai's figure as strong vitality pulsed around it. This divine manifestation combined the 2 effects of defense and healing, but the protection it could offer to Yang Kai was limited under the bombardment of a pseudo-royal lord. Fortunately, the divine manifestation powered by the immortal tree's essence was really effective in healing wounds, no less so than his dragon vein. Meng Qiu soon realized that even though he had no idea what sort of secret technique Yang Kai was using, the injuries he was inflicting on this human were recovering at a rate visible to the naked eye. This caused Meng Qiu to frown. He was surprised by Yang Kai's tricky resilience, and despite their crushing difference in their strength, he was still unable to deal with him within a short amount of time. This made Meng Qiu attack with even greater ferocity. He also had to divert some of his attention to probe for the leopard's whereabouts. According to the information he received from the various Great Territory battlefields, this leopard was very strong and had some hidden innate divine abilities from its origins as one of monster race, making it almost invisible under the premise it did not attack. If it suddenly launched an ambush, its power was not to be underestimated. This was also Yang Kai's intention. He had Thunder Shadow hide himself from the start just to distract Meng Qiu. Even though Thunder Shadow was strong, he was yet to go far beyond the realm of surpassing ordinary 8th Order masters like Yang Kai, and against such a pseudo-royal lord, even if he did attack, it would not have too much of an effect while coming with great risks. Rather than take such a gamble, it was better to just hide itself instead. Only a hidden card could keep an enemy on their toes. Meng Qiu took it for granted that Thunder Shadow was hiding on the sidelines in order to put in a sneak attack, but in fact, Thunder Shadow had silently gone far away when Yang Kai resolutely engaged Meng Qiu in battle. Meng Qiu's threats made it so that Yang Kai had no choice but to fight him head-on. It seemed to put him in a passive position, but Yang Kai had already anticipated this possibility and had a plan ready to deal with it. There were always two sides to every situation. Even though the fight going on the other side was the capital, Meng Qiu had to issue threats. Why could it not be used to Yang Kai's benefit as well? On his own, Yang Kai was no match for Meng Qiu, but with the help of the other 8th Order Masters, Meng Qiu would become no issue. To achieve this, he had to first help the 8th Order Masters out of their situation. So, Thunder Shadow had gone over to the other side. Concealing his aura with his innate divine ability, Thunder Shadow moved urgently, but silently towards the other battlefield. From a distance, Thunder Shadow could feel the stirring of world force clashing with the surging black ink strength. As he moved closer, Thunder Shadow saw 4 8th Order Masters linked together in a 4 symbols formation as they fought against a pseudo-royal lord. The tide was turning against the human side. Against a pseudo-royal lord, the 8th Order Masters would have to form a 5 elements formation to compete evenly. The 4 symbols formation was still lacking. When Thunder Shadow arrived, the 4 8th Order Masters were working in perfect tandem with each other and the battle formation was functioning flawlessly, but they were still at a disadvantage against their enemy. Remnants of Black Ink clansmen's corpses were still littered around the battlefield. They were apparently from nearby Black Ink clan soldiers, who had sensed the commotion and had come to support the pseudo-royal lord, only to be killed for their efforts. Even though the situation was somewhat unfavorable, the 4 8th Orders were not in danger of dying for the moment. They were not just soft persimmons to be pinched at will. All of them had been through countless life or death struggles, so they knew what needed to be done in situations like these. The 4 of them fought with great vigor as they put their lives on the line. Their attacks were sharp and ruthless against the pseudo-royal lord, which left their opponent somewhat constrained. If he could be determined enough to put his own life at risk, the pseudo-royal lord might be able to finish off these 4 8th Order Masters at a heavy cost. At the very least, he was sure to sustain serious wounds. In the Universe Furnace world, however, a pseudo-royal lord who was badly wounded but unable to rest and heal would not be able to survive another encounter with a human race master. This pseudo-royal lord had narrowly escaped death during the Source Fusion, so there was no way he would put himself in such danger so easily. It was with this in mind that the 4 8th Orders took such a strong stance. In terms of healing, it was much more troublesome for the Black Ink clan than the human race. In a situation where both sides traded injuries, it was the human race that ultimately came out on top even if they suffered fatalities. Sure enough, the pseudo-royal lord seemed disgruntled by the fight after a while. Seeing that he could not easily finish off these 8th Order Masters, he was prepared to retreat. The 8th Order Masters, too, were aware of this. With the battle formation joined, they were of one mind and tacitly slowed down their attacks. No one was willing to meaninglessly sacrifice themselves if the possibility of survival was present. If the pseudo-royal lord wanted to leave, they were happy to let him. In the next instant, a black ink cloud spread out, enveloping the surrounding space. The pseudo-royal lord feigned an attack before pulling back and jumping out of the 4 8th Order battle formation's range in an instant. With a frown on his brow, he was just about to speak a few lines before making his exit, but something suddenly appeared behind him. The pseudo-royal lord's face looked horrified as he turned around in a hurry, raising his hand to throw out a palm. But his palm struck at nothing. The only thing that came into view at the corner of his vision was a black leopard that had appeared behind him at some point in time, as well as a flash of pure white light that covered his vision. Purifying light. Evil purging divine spear. From the information provided by the Black Ink disciples, the Black Ink clan was naturally aware of the evil purging divine spears, and after fighting with the humans for so many years, this was a common weapon used on the various battlefields that had given them a big headache. So, the moment he saw the dazzling white light, the pseudo-royal lord knew that the black leopard, which had snuck over silently, had unleashed an evil purging divine spear at him. From its might, it seemed to be the kind of evil purging divine spear that was used against Territory Lord. His mind turned sharply and he hurriedly circulated his black ink strength to guard his body. Under the envelopment of the white light, the dense black ink strength was purified and disappeared. Bathed in the pure white light, even a pseudo-royal lord as strong as him felt uncomfortable, and a burning sensation spread over the surface of his skin. It was fortunate that he had detected the sneak attack in time and did not take the full brunt of it undefended, otherwise, he would have gotten seriously injured, especially if such a powerful weapon were to pierce him and explode inside his body. All of a sudden, a powerful battle formation circled him again. 4 auras locked him firmly in place, instantly intensifying the anger welling up in the pseudo-royal lord. Then, the 4 Eighth Order Masters launched a barrage of attacks. Despite his anger, he did not dare to continue this fight. With this silent black leopard joining the humans, the upper hand he had was lost. Continuing to fight would only be bringing shame upon himself. Moreover, he was not sure whether or not there were more human race masters lurking nearby. So, he made a quick decision and his body split into a dozen black ink clouds that shot out in all directions. By the time the 4 Eighth Order Masters reacted, they were only able to block half of the black ink clouds, but none of them hid the pseudo-royal lord. With that delay, how could they still catch the escaped pseudo-royal lord? They could only stop there and sigh at their misfortune. Among the 4 Eighth Order Masters in formation, the one acting as the core was a brave and heroic man with red hair like fire while the 3 others surrounded him. If Yang Kai had been here, he would have instantly recognized Ouyang Yang Lai. Ouyang Yang Lai had originally been deployed to the depths of the Black Ink battlefield to guard the resource mining teams, but he was sent back to the Supreme Headquarters by Yang Kai when the Territory Lords were found escaping the Primordial Heavens Source Grand Restriction to report the situation. That was how he gained access to the Universe Furnace. Otherwise, Ouyang Yang Lai would surely still be leading the tens of thousands of humans, moving around in secret while mining for materials. Of the 4 Eighth Order Masters here, Ouyang Yang Lai was the only veteran while the other 3 were rising stars who had just advanced recently over the last few thousand years. It was for that reason that he served as the core of the 4 Symbols formation. The old commander naturally had his own role to play. The 3 younger Eighth Order Masters were still eager to give chase, but Ouyang Yang Lai shook his head. A hard-pressed enemy should not be pursued too far. Even if they did go after him, they would not be able to do much to him in their current state. All 4 were wounded in the fight with the pseudo-royal lord, and if the pseudo-royal lord had not decided to retreat for his own safety, they would likely not have come out of this in one piece. Pseudo-royal lords were truly powerful. Despite being in a battle formation, the 4 of them were still suppressed and beaten. Only Yang Kai had ever fought a master of this caliber alone in all these years, and before the Universe Furnace came into existence, no one else had ever even encountered a pseudo-royal lord before. The more this was, the more Ouyang Yang Lai realized how difficult it must have been for Yang Kai. The Black Ink clan had cultivated pseudo-royal lords long ago, and if it were not for Yang Kai's efforts in keeping them in check at the no-return pass, there would have been many more casualties on the human race's side. The human race was nothing more than a name, but the weight it carried was extraordinary. It was an inheritance passed down from ancient times, but now, a significant portion of the burdens were resting on one person's shoulders. How terrible must that pressure be? You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,